Okay, board members, I think we're close to beginning. I think we might have one or two out in the hallway there. So, hey, Superintendent, can you see if there's any board members out here we can? Laura's. I think
I'm on the phone.
Linda's on the phone. I'm looking for Lisa and Brittany is there. Found Brittany. Okay.
Is Scott on the phone? I can call.
Scott was going to try to get on the phone.
Yeah, but he dialed the wrong number last time that I texted him, so let me make sure.
Elisa's trying to get on.
Oh, she is? Okay.
She's just waiting for the signal and she'll call in, so
Okay.
somebody text her now. I just texted her, okay.
So you're going to shoot one to Scott with the number?
I can call him to make sure he got my text.
Okay.
Why don't we just all stay home in our jammies and dial it in, and you can be here with
Hey, that would be.
call on us.
You guys can't be with pajamas.
No.
I might call in tomorrow. My son said.
Oh, would that be so cute?
Oh, I thought this is when I confused him and I
I
called him again, but he's
together
not
and all
calling
stay
on the wrong
home.
number. I guess.
We could just, isn't it cute?
I texted it to you already, okay? So if you, okay, all right. We're just getting you started, so.
Hey, Board Member Belknap, will you invite Darren and whatever staff he's got to come up to just come up, because we're going right into some heavy lifting in his world. Chair Gravitt, it had to feel pretty heavy. It's been intense last week or last month, and
7.5 hours.
yeah. Okay. So do we have everybody? I think we have a couple trying to get on the phones, but we're going to get started. We're going to item number 10, which is an actionable item, which is a health standards revision, and I'd like to turn things over to the committee chair, Jennifer Gravitt, that had a marathon meeting last month and on this, and it's been a lot of work, and you can do the introduction overview and where we're at. Okay, hang on one sec. I'm slow on this. There we go.
So it's okay to go over some background, Chair, and talk about some things before making the motion? Is that okay?
Yeah, a little
Okay.
background, just brief,
I'll be very
little
brief.
background, and then
Okay. Okay, so I'm sure you have all had a chance to look at the background, but just to kind of set the context, this whole process began back in July of 2017 when the board initiated the revision process of health standards. From there, a standards review committee was organized. In March of 2017, the writing committee was organized, and I believe the writing committee met over 35 times in the course of this process. So I think that's important to know. I think it's important to know that the writing committee is made up of a lot of different stakeholders. You have educators, Utah Department of Health, American Heart Association, Primary Children's Hospital, university professors, Utah Division of Substance Abuse Prevention and Mental Health, LEA specialists, as well as staff of the board. From there, the committee met on March 29th, 2018 to review and report. Then the standards were put out for a 90-day public review. I think we had over 1,000 responses on the survey. There were 6 public meetings held with lots of feedback there, including LEA directors, PTA, Health Commission, which brings us to last month, where the Standards and Assessment Committee all deserve stickers for their cars like people have for marathons, except ours should say 7.5. Because they hung in there, and we took a lot of time, and we took a lot of time to thoughtfully debate and dialogue the things that you as board members had brought before us. And I hope that you all had a chance to look at those revisions. And I do want to thank the board members for getting amendments to us ahead of time, for increasing the debate and the discussion so that everybody felt like they were heard. I really appreciate that, and I know board members appreciated that. As a committee, we spent 7.5 hours so that we could thoughtfully give consideration to all of the things that were brought up. When I'm looking back over the motions, there were nearly 40 motions. And that's because we really cared about what you had to say, and we did debate those thoughtfully, and I thought with a lot of care in doing that. With that said, I'm hoping that as a board, you will trust the work of the public and trust the work of our committee and trust the work of our staff. I think Jody sat there for 7.5 hours without a break, without food. She's a rock star. And all of staff, I just really appreciate all of the work, meeting with people individually and personally, and that says a lot about the people we work with. So with that said, I know you're all just going to pass these right now unanimously, but the motion before the board is that the committee moves that the board approve the health education standards as amended.
Okay, before I put the motion on the floor, and thank you, Board Member, or Chair Gravitt, for all the work that's been done on this. I'm going to ask first if there's any clarifying questions. And again, there isn't a motion on the board, so we're not accepting amendments and going into debate right now. Is there any clarifying questions? And I'm seeing none. So in the interest of time, and oh, there we go. I looked away from my screen. Yeah, this is about the motion. This is questions. Board Member Cindy Davis, you have a question? A clarifying question?
I do have a clarifying question, but I also want to thank the Standards Committee and the staff. I love the changes that have been made. I think that your work has been fabulous, and I submitted some suggestions to our Standards Committee chair, and I got some of what I wanted and didn't get some of what I wanted, and I'm assuming that's how it will be for all of us as board members or members of the public, but the final product, I think, is going to be good for kids, and I trust the process. I have a few questions, but I'm just going to pick one and preface it by saying that I've never been asked to help in a situation with the Boy Scouts, but I was recently, and I had to take this training, this sexual abuse prevention training, and I've got these stories that these people told from their childhood rattling in my head and kind of haunting me a little bit. And one of the women who spoke said that she was sexually abused pretty repeatedly starting when she was 6 years old. And she said, I just didn't know that it was wrong, or she said, I wish somebody would have taught me that was wrong, or what to do, and then she had, a lifetime that she's now been dealing with the repercussions of that. So my question sort of stems, if you'll go to page 25 in the standards, my question is, are we teaching these children that is wrong for that to be happening to them, and what to do about it, even if someone is incentivizing them not to tell? Are we teaching them what avenue they have to stop that abuse? And then finally, my question is, on page 25 in the bottom section of the standards, on part letter B, it says, explain why a person who has been raped or sexually assaulted is not at fault. And that's the first time I'm seeing that in the standards, and that's not until the secondary curriculum. Is there a spot earlier where we are teaching these little children, if that has happened to them, that they are not at fault? And how are we doing that? That's my question for the committee and the staff and whoever can answer that.
Okay. Darren, do you want to introduce everyone that you have here? And is somebody from staff, whenever we refer to a question or whatever, whether it's page, whatever, line, etc., going to be the gatekeeper on putting it? Okay. So we've got that handled then, Superintendent? Thank you.
Do you want me to
Okay,
repeat again which
go ahead.
section it is?
Darren, do you want to introduce?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm Darren Nielsen, Assistant Superintendent of Student Learning. Directly on my left is Jody Kaufman, who's our health specialist and who's helped lead the bulk of the work, as her name's been mentioned earlier. Really appreciate her service in this capacity. And then Jennifer Thronston, our new Director of Teaching and Learning, is also at the table with us.
Okay. Who would best answer that question?
Probably Jody.
Okay, Jody.
Don't need two mics. I think one mic is plenty.
Okay.
Jody Kaufman, Health Education Specialist. So the question is specifically with rape. That is the first time that rape is mentioned, but the abuse prevention standards do begin in kindergarten. They are always the last standard on every single grade.
Can I have
Follow up?
Yeah. I just didn't see a culpability statement, not the word rape, and I think that would be, we shouldn't be using that in the lower grades, but is there a kind of a culpability, like you're not culpable if someone has done this to you? Is that language anywhere in the earlier grades?
The language it's. Sorry,
Go ahead,
may
please.
I answer?
Jody, yeah.
That language itself is not. I believe that would come with the resources once. Am I not?
Yep, you got to get a little closer to the mic.
Okay. Okay. I think that a lot of that would come with the curriculum that is done in the classroom, and that's chosen locally.
Okay.
Okay.
Did you have an additional clarifying question?
Yeah, so we don't essentially in our standards have any language that says nobody should be touching your most personal parts of your body right now. And if this has happened, this is what you do, and you're not a bad person because of that. We don't have that in our standards currently. Is that what you're saying?
The not at fault is the part that is not everywhere else. But I believe everything else is there. Discuss how to say no, leave an interaction, identify, talk with a trusted adult when feeling uncomfortable, afraid, or unsafe. And then it goes on in the later grades on how you may need to talk with more than one adult if the problem's not resolved. And so that's every single grade. And then that is actually also in code. Abuse prevention is a requirement that must be taught.
And is that specific? Is it implied? I'm just thinking of the 6-year-old that said, you know, if you say, if you're uncomfortable or unsafe or afraid, she didn't know to be that when she was going through this. So is it just implied then in that, or is it more specific in the code that we use to write the standards?
If you want more answers about the code, I would refer to someone other than myself. I facilitated. Corby Eason is fantastic, and we relied on his expertise with the rules and code.
Okay.
So can we invite him up?
Good afternoon. My name is Corby Easton. I'm the Student Support Prevention Specialist here at USBE. To answer your question about is there a code required to teach young children about child sexual abuse prevention? Yes, it is. It's 53G-9-207. In partnership with the Board of Education and the Department of Human Services, we approved, we vet each curriculum, and then we send it through the board, and y'all put the final approval on what providers put it on a list that a local LEA should choose to give the curriculum. It's required that all school staff receive this training every other year. It's required that LEAs provide this training to parents via website, however they decide, the method they decide to deliver that to the parent. But also, each LEA, they may provide this curriculum through K through 6th grade students. So that's the requirement on 53G-9-207, and that have been in place since 2015. Yeah.
So,
Okay,
so
thank you.
my understanding, and this comes from previous service on a local board, is in the past, it was the local board was kind of addressing that curriculum and how and that conversation was going to be crafted on those younger ages. And then, of course, you guys vet that to a certain degree also. And that was the intent in the past is boards wanted to be have control over that part of it, of what happens and how they communicate, depending on what the board's preference was, and that's what I recall from the past. And
Yes.
apparently that's
Yep.
trickled into where the present is now on these proposed standards, that consideration stayed in place. That's my understanding, but I could be wrong, unless I'm wrong.
No, you're correct. Each board decide how they choose to do. Each local board decide how they choose to deliver that method.
Okay. Follow-up question. Okay. Follow-up?
So there was language in a previous draft that said something about being touched inappropriately in every grade. And then I guess my question is, why did the group decide to take that out? It was crossed off.
I don't, staff or Darren, does anyone, okay, Chair, you were part of that, so you can weigh into this.
So, and I was going to
Chair Gravitt.
respond, Board Member Davis, if you look at standard KHD3, distinguish between appropriate and inappropriate touch, thinking about that 6-year-old, right there, that does talk about, that would have been inappropriate, but I didn't know that was taken out anywhere. I have no recollection of that when I'm looking through my stuff. Do you remember which grade it was taken out? Because
Yeah.
I have a hard time imagining.
That is a good point, but that could be
Yeah.
also punching somebody. But there was a specific line that was really specific in an earlier draft, and
Do
it
you
was
know where?
crossed off of every grade. It was the one I talked to you about for the last meeting. I can't remember now off the top of
Well,
my
the
head.
question,
but it was
the
in a
question
previous
is
draft.
why it was taken out, and apparently right now, nobody knows why it was, or even
It was
whether it was
crossed
really
off in
existed,
every
so.
grade.
Is that, I'm trying to keep it to the discussion to the question a little bit, but I'm trying to figure that out.
I don't know which one you mean, but I think it was fixed.
So we're having a little bit
Did
of
you
a
look
pause
at
to-
the current one, in the current draft?
So that's
It was in the old one.
right now I'm not getting an answer from staff.
I'll try to find it in the crosswalk.
Okay, but one of to address your question on that, if it's not in there, right now, that's what came out of committee.
She's
So
doing
that's,
addiction, right?
that's what will end up being on the floor.
I guess I don't know which one.
Okay. Any other clarifying questions?
Doesn't cover.
Okay, I'm not seeing any. Okay, now we're going to get into the work of this, which is, I'm putting a motion on the floor, and the motion from the committee is that the board approve the health education standards as amended. So, it is now on the floor. Before I start recognizing all of the proposed amendments, I know Board Member Jenny Earl has, I believe it's, 17 proposed amendment. And I want to be fair and reasonable with everybody as we go through this. Does anyone else here have, by a show of hands, have proposed amendments? Okay, with that, I just want to respect, if there was more, then we would bounce back and forth from different people. Well, I haven't,
Just ask one people to mute their phones.
does anyone on the phone have proposed amendments? Oh, I'm hoping they heard the question.
No, I heard the question. I do not, Mark.
Oh, do you have any clarifying questions?
Negative.
Okay.
I don't have any either, or
Okay.
any amendments.
All right, thank you. Can I get you to make sure you mute on this unless you need to weigh in, and then if you can text Brittany or something, and then I'll call you on it. Okay?
Roger, I'll make sure it's muted.
All right. Hey, thank you. So with that, Board Member Jenny Earl, I have them in writing, and Miss Lorraine, did you end up routing them anywhere? Or?
It's on board docs.
It's on board docs, and I believe staff will kind of track it on our monitor. I don't know who is. Somebody, who's the gate? Okay, Jennifer, thank you. As we're going through this, and appreciate all the work on this, but the best way to get through this would be, and she's got some explanation to her motions and that, but I think the best way to go through it would be, say, is hit them one at a time. And I just want to make sure that Jenny's okay with this. And she has in writing where she says, I'd like to make a motion, and what I would, maybe if she's okay with this, the number one would stand as number one, and there's some details in there that you can see, and have the amendment be amendment number one. We go to that detail, and then she can speak to why she's wanting to do that for each one, which is in that first paragraph by the number one. And so it's a little bit different than what's written, but I think that would be more efficient. Who's making the motion? Board Member Earl, are you comfortable with that? Are you okay with that? Okay, so we are going to get started.
Chair, I'm just checking my sound. Can you hear? I just want to make sure you can hear me.
Yes, we have you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, so Board Member Earl,
All right, so
make a motion for
let
amendment
me make a
one.
motion. I appreciate all the work that's been done on this. I just make a motion that we reinsert parent. So it would be, instead of saying just trusted adult, it would say parent or trusted adult with the list that's defined there. I've got the standards listed out there. I don't know that I need to read through those, right? The standard K?
No.
Yep. Okay, I
to
move
amend
amendment one. Should
Do we need a
I
second?
also do?
Okay, you'll be able to speak to it, just one sec. I think this will be
Okay,
the
I move
quickest
amendment.
way.
Okay,
Okay, you move?
I move amendment one.
Okay, is there a second? Second. We have a second. Board Member Bolter. Board Member Earl, would you like to speak to your amendment?
Yes, I would. I think, and we're seeing it, not just that I think, but even the letter that was from Doug Thomas, that it just stated there, the goal of health education is to support families and parents. And we can go back to the suicide prevention, things that came out of the suicide prevention task force. And there it says in the core health curriculum, improved family relations, anything that would strengthen that. That does not weaken any other trusted adult. It doesn't weaken any other individual that's on there. But it says in Utah this is a priority, that our families are a priority and parents are a priority. They're not just clumped into the other trusted adults. So I move that, and with that, just the other standards here, family members or trusted adults, it's just emphasizing that that's the individuals in addition to the other individuals that are adults in the children's lives. So that's number one.
Okay, and it's kind of following one for consideration of the public and everyone that doesn't have this. It's okay if you state what you have, like I make a motion to, but when you get to the two, if you just read that.
Okay,
My
do you want
purpose
me
of
to
the
read
motion-
down through
my-
standard
The
4?
purpose of my amendment is to reinsert parent, if you'd read that part.
Okay, my motion. Oh, is
No,
that-
not your motion.
What do you- Where are you talking then?
Okay.
Do you want me to read the blue? Is that what you want me to read?
Yeah.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to reinsert parent is a primary responsible party in regards to the care of their child. Throughout the document, whenever trusted adult is used, it will be read as parent or trusted adult. And then continuing with the list that's there, I think that's a great thing, including those standards that are listed there. Standard 4, HD 2, 3.
No, you don't have to go that part.
Okay.
Okay, just to there.
Okay.
And see, and this is for the people that don't have access to everything
Okay.
that we have, and
Perfect.
that way everyone has access. So I think we'll set the standard on
Okay.
this first one, and I think we can get through it
Perfect.
and with clarity, and everyone and board members that are on the phone can make an informed informed decision. Okay, anyone else want to speak to the motion? Board Member Gravitt.
I just kind of wanted, for those of you who are in committee, to give some background on, we had this discussion, and maybe you listened, and part of it, what came out is, when you phrase it like that, it sort of becomes a dichotomy. You have a parent or a trusted adult, which in some ways can imply that the parent isn't trusted. So we wanted to avoid that. We also talked about that really, when you're looking for somebody to trust, it's not about their title or their role, because abuse happens in families, abuse happens with clergy, abuse happens everywhere, and children should trust a person because they deserve trust. And so by just saying trusted adult and then putting in parentheses examples, it focuses more on the qualities of that person rather than their title or role. Because kids in abuse situations, sometimes, like Board Member Davis said, they don't know they're being abused because it's a person they're supposed to trust. So anyway, we had a big discussion on that, and other committee members can weigh in, but that's how we came to this compromise, to include parents. But what about those kids who the abuse is happening in the home? That's really was important to us.
Okay, any other discussion to the motion? Okay,
Yeah, I
seeing,
have a comment
yep.
as well.
Okay, Elisa?
Is it Linda?
Thank you. I recognize that
Here in the next one.
unfortunately there are children abused in homes, but I am concerned whenever we put family as an afterthought, because in a minority of situations, children are abused in the home. I understand that a lot of abuse happens in the home, but to say that amongst all kids that most kids are abused, I just think that we just need to be careful, and that our responsibility as a State Board of Ed is to assist and help and uplift and support families, not the other way around. And so I would agree with this motion and putting parents and family in its rightful place. And if there needs to be a clarifying language to say parent and or, so that we don't have that discrepancy that Board Member Gravitt is concerned about, that would be fine. But I think that it's important that parent isn't just listed as an example, but as the primary source of which we serve the children in the state of Utah. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Linda, I thought I heard you. Did you want to weigh in?
I do. I was on the committee too, and I know that there was a lot of feedback on this. And so what we try, as I looked at this, I tried to find some wording that would work. And like Jenny mentioned, parent or trusted adult makes it look like the parent isn't a trusted adult. If you put parent or other trusted adult, that makes it sound like all parents are trusted adults, which they aren't. So as we talked about this in committee, we felt like this was the best option to make it clear exactly who we were talking about for the benefit of the kids. So I'm against this motion. I'm in favor of the way it's written in the draft.
Okay. Board Member Bolter?
Thank you, and thank you, Board Member Gravitt, for that clarification. I did watch, but listening to it again was good. I am going to speak for this motion. I'm fine if we put parent and or other trusted adult, but we need to just make sure that parent is the primary person that a child knows that they go to. I know that there is a statistic going around. I did hear it in the meeting. I believe it was like 60% of abuse cases, or I can't remember the number, happens in the home or by a known parent. But we have to remember that it's 60% of those abuse cases. And then we're not saying 60% of all the families in Utah. So when we say 60% of those abuse cases, and 60% in my book, even of those abuse cases, is too many. I mean, 1% would be too many. I don't want anybody being abused by anyone. But we need to put it into context that there's a lot more families in the state of Utah. So if we took that 60% of those abuse cases among all the families of Utah, that would be about 1 to 2% of parents. And so to say that a lot of parents are abusing their children, I just feel like that's really a dangerous thing to say, because at the end of the day, and when we look at everything, the majority of parents are not abusing their children. And so we need to make sure that parents are elevated and that the child turns to the parent. It's very important that the parent is the one that the child turns to, and the family. And then if they can't, for whatever reason, then we've got or other trusted adult. But to turn back to the family is extremely important.
Board Member Scott Hansen.
And just speaking for what went on in the committee, we did have a lot of comments about parent being included in this. One thing I think we did that was very important was add in the very first paragraph of this, the goal of health education is to support parents and families. Two other points, I think. I know the 60% statistic was out there, if that's the right number, but it is the kids who are being abused that we are needing to report. And so for them, that 60% is a relevant number. It's not the 1.2%, it's 60% of their parents are abusers. The other thing is, I believe that the way it's worded now gives a lot of space for local control to go in. This isn't curriculum. This is listing, these are trusted adults, and local school boards are going to have to approve curriculum, and they can teach that and emphasize it as they see fit. So I was speaking in favor of the way it's worded. For that reason, local control will allow people to interpret that, the local educators, and do as they see fit.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other board members in the queue, so the amendment before the board is the amendment number 1. Let's put this to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye. No. No.
Okay, so we're going to count the ayes. Will the ayes raise their hands? Board Member Cindy Davis. Board Member Belknap. Board Member Lisa Cummins. Board Member Earl. Board Member Bolter.
Alice.
Board Member Bolter. Or no, Ellis.
Scott.
Board Member Nielsen is a yay.
Okay, how many is that? 7. That's 7? Is that what we have for a count? Okay, the amendment, amendment number 1 fails to pass. Board Member Earl, Amendment 2.
All right, so Amendment 2, this has to do with, okay, I'd like to make a motion. Let me make sure I'm getting this the way. Okay, how do you want me to?
We need to name
You don't want
it.
me to
We gotta call it number 2.
Okay, I'd like to move number 2, but I don't need to state what it is, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
we will when we
Do you want me
speak.
to read the blue then or
So
not?
let's get a second on it first.
Okay, I would like to make a motion that when creating safety plans or discussing the effects of technology, parents be included with educators.
Okay, which is part of this Amendment 2, and you have things outlined. So you're
Yes.
referring to your Amendment 2.
I'm referring to Amendment 2.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Board Member Belknap. Discussion to the motion, Board Member Earl, do you want to speak to it?
Yes, just that, especially with safety plans, when you're talking about building safety plans, whether that's technology, whether that's some kind of a safety plan at home or usage, that the primary people you want involved in this would be your parents, in addition to the education they're receiving at schools. And so I would encourage us to add these two. Do you want me to read what's in the red then, or not?
No, we have it in front of us.
Okay,
But
I just want to make sure for anybody online or anything. Okay.
we don't,
Okay, so that's.
because I think they have that, but you've already covered.
I just think it's important that we're creating that communication, those bonds back and forth, and as we're discussing things at school, that it's important that those things are also carried through in the home. And I think that's an important concept for reinforcement of those things. So, thank you.
Vice Chair Brittany Cummins.
I just have a question on Standard 4 SDP 4, where you, the amendment proposal says that they would develop a personal technology plan with parent or educator help. And so with that decision on, so if I was teaching this class and had this plan development as part of my lesson plan today, would I, as a teacher, have the ability to make the decision that, we're going to do this together in class, therefore it meets the standard of educator help? Or am I required as a teacher to say, you must go home and develop it at home and bring it back to me? And so that would be just my question.
I think
for
just parent
clarification.
involvement in that, is there a better way to clarify that? Is that what you're saying?
So, can I clarify my
Yes,
question?
yes, please.
So would it require a teacher to require parental participation in the development of that plan?
I was trying to look at the original wording, but I don't have the original wording in front of me. So let's see, discuss and use and misuse of current technology and develop personal technology.
Okay, does staff have that
Yeah.
standard? Does it require? Okay, let me turn this on just one sec. Okay.
The standard currently is drafted as discuss use and misuse of current technology and develop a personal safety plan for technology use.
So it's limited to that.
So it isn't, yeah, I guess it isn't either one, but I just would like to insert parent in that so that it's reinforced through the home.
Did you have a
Sorry,
follow-up on your
Just
question?
to follow up, because I don't think my question's been fully answered. If it was.
Well, there's no point in setting up a plan unless there is some follow-through on one end or the other.
Correct, but the way the amendment is worded, it says, so if this is the standard I'm reading as a teacher, I say, I'm going to discuss the use and misuse of current technology and develop a personal technology plan. So am I telling my students, you should develop a plan with your parents, or am I having them, requiring them, you will develop a personal technology plan? I'll check it off because you're saying that it has to be with a parent or educator help. And so it's almost like saying you will develop a plan as the standard, to meet the standard. And so do I have to require now as a teacher that you go home and you do this with a parent and I have to check off that, yep, your parent was part of that process? So I'm just talking about the verbiage in the amendment, what requirement that would place on a teacher in a classroom as they're going through this standard.
I guess I'm looking at it as it could be either or. I guess it would depending on what the teacher wanted to do in this case. So are you not seeing it that way? You're seeing it as more of a requirement from outside?
You're kind of seeing it as, so we have our standards people here, right? So the standard would be, with this proposed amendment, would be what? What would be the expectation of the educator? Because that's what we have standards for, correct? Okay, Darren.
Yeah, so the standards set the expectations, the learning expectations, how the teacher implements that. The way the standard's currently written, where it requires, or it asks them to create a personal plan, safety plan. Currently, the teacher could require that involves the parent, or they could not require it involves the parent, because the plan and the elements of that plan could be decided at the instructional level.
May I add?
Okay.
Can I add to that? With
Yes.
the verbiage proposed, because it says or, it wouldn't require a parent. It would be different if you said and in that statement. So they can do it with a parent or the trusted adult or the educator in those examples.
or.
So because of the or, you're not mandating it, except in the third one that says and or, potentially you could be.
Thank you, staff. Does that, Vice Chair Brittany Cummings, that answer your question to a certain degree?
So I just want to be very cautious. I mean, obviously, when we make standards, we're very specific with the wording because we don't want to create confusion with what we write, because otherwise we end up back here answering lots and lots and lots of questions. And so I guess I'm just curious. So if it is a standard, right, if the standard is that base place of what you're requiring, if the standard is that you're going to develop a technology plan and it's with an educator or parent help, then it makes it almost unnecessary to make the statement, right? Because the educator is obviously going to be in the classroom, and they have the option to have the parent be a part of it. But then when you get into the other ones where it says with the help of a parent and or educators, is that creates the dynamic of, are you putting the responsibility of a teacher to require that a parent be involved, and what happens if that student's parent decides not to be involved? Now we've created a standard, which is, a state requirement that says you must do this, and what if that teacher doesn't comply because the parent cannot or will not participate in that? And so that's my question. I just want to make sure that we're not putting words in where the intention is good, that you want to have the parents be a part of this conversation, but then it creates a mandate that maybe a teacher cannot comply with if we don't make sure the wording is correct.
So are you suggesting, are you amendment to that?
Maybe I'm just, sorry, Chair.
Go ahead.
I
Vice Chair Van
I guess I would like to speak against this particular amendment as worded for those reasons, because I think the clarity is difficult to understand, and the possible impact that it would have for a teacher in the classroom trying to understand what their obligation is to fulfill it. So.
Okay, well, go ahead, then I'll speak at the end. So.
You're good. Okay, Board Member Scott Hansen.
Again, just speaking about what happened in committee, I think the consensus there was we were all about families and want family support and all this, and nothing, the exclusion of this amended language certainly doesn't prevent families from being as involved as they want to be. But what Vice Chair Cummins said, we kind of carried the day in our meeting, and that we didn't want to put teachers in an untenable position where they were requiring something to happen outside of the classroom that may not happen, and then putting the kids in a very uncomfortable position because they don't have that family support. So that's why it's worded the way it is, at least in my mind. That's my recollection.
Okay, Jenny. Or Jennifer Gravitt.
Thanks for
Sorry.
using my full name.
Hold that. Will you turn your mic back on, please? There you go.
So I just wanted to remind you that in the standards, right at the very beginning, every time a new grade begins, it defines trusted adults, where you have parent, guardian. And I just think where if you change on Standard 1 SDP 3, recognize the importance of using electronic devices only with a parent or other trusted adult, it's redundant because we have defined it. Again, that could be a parent, that could be a guardian if you don't live with your parents, that could be a relative teacher, and then we're not tying, teachers' hands and saying this has to be. But I just wanted to point out that it's already in there.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other. Did you have?
Just closing comments once again. I just feel like, especially when you're talking technology, anything you can do to reinforce with a family the safety plans and the things that are going on within the school, I don't think it takes away from. I think it adds to. And I think that is the intent. It's not the intent to create confusion or, something that way, but it is the intent to collaborate with, well, not collaborate with, but to have parents involved in that and make sure those safety plans are going home and that there's dialogue with parents. So that's my comment there.
I'm not saying any other.
Chair, I sent Brittany a text. But
Okay,
I don't
I've got
think
you.
it.
Elisa.
Thank you. I'm concerned the same way that Vice Chair Cummins is concerned. I'm concerned the other way by not recognizing parents specifically. I'm concerned about the school taking it upon themselves to, or any educator to take it upon themselves in their class to create an internet safety plan. Because just in our home, and I know neighbors down the street and across my community, we all have varying rules on technology use, and so I think it's a dangerous precedent to set that we just say that they have to develop. If they said we're just going to talk about internet safety, that would be one thing. But to then say you must develop an internet safety plan and without having anything to say this needs to go home, it puts the child in an awkward situation where they are then put in between the teacher's authority and their parental authority. I know that often in my own home, this type of thing comes up where someone else has set the standard that is not as high as our standard for what we expect. And it puts our children in a position where they then have to decide, do I believe that my parent knows, or are they just not as smart as, whoever it is that's setting this precedent for them? And so I think we just need to be very cautious in our role as state board members to not get in the way of the family. And by not clarifying who gets to determine the safety plan, then that's exactly what could happen. And I just think we need to be more specific that this should be something that is talked about at home. So I speak in favor of the amendment, and if someone can come up with better language, then I support that.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other discussion to the proposed amendment titled number 2, so we'll vote on it. So the proposed amendment before the board is to approve amendment number 2. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay, with the ayes, who on the phone is an aye?
Scott Nielsen is an aye.
Okay. Annalisa? Okay.
Yes.
And those here, will you raise your hands that are the ayes? Board Member Lisa Cummins, Board Member Bolter, Board Member Earl, Board Member Belknap, and Board Member Newell. 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, the Amendment 2 does not pass. Okay, Board Member Earl, you have
Okay.
a number 3.
Yes, I would like to move number 3, amendment number 3. So this is a motion to include parents as a reinforcing person for the content in the curriculum, or they are for example, okay, that's it. Sorry, I'm wanting to give more detail. I'm trying to keep from giving more detail, and it's a little difficult for me.
Well, you're doing great, by the way.
I did. I'm making a motion that we move number 3.
Okay, do we have a second?
So.
Second, Board Member Bolter. You want to speak to the motion?
Yes, I do. So standard 2 is its goal setting and encouraging kids to discuss with parents or family members the strategies for meeting that goal. That becomes a reinforcement for what's being taught at school, becomes a reinforcement for what's going on at home too. And then the same, just encouraging practice active listening skills. It's just adding language that supports home. It's adding language that supports the connection between the two, so there's not a disconnect. And then 3, the same thing, measurable goals. Identify family or friends who can help achieve that goal. So I think it's just creating a stronger connection between the two, which creates a supportive environment.
Okay. Discussion to the amendment. Vice Chair Brittany Cummins. Question or discussion?
I don't know if I'm interested in splitting it because I really like the standard 3, the third one, because it talks about identifying friends or family that can help. But I guess my question is, like I said, we're setting a standard. What if that's not possible? So if you set a standard that for the first one, standard 2, HF1, set a goal, and then you must discuss it with a parent or family member. It's an assignment, right? You know, a teacher can assign and say, I assigned this to so-and-so, and you will go back and report to me. But it's different than a standard that says this must happen in order to show that you're proficient or that you're competent in this particular thing. And so it kind of worries me that we're putting those types of requirements as a standard of understanding or a standard of competency that I went and did. I spoke to a family member or someone about it. And so that's why I'm concerned a little bit about this particular amendment and would speak against it, I guess.
Board Member Bolter?
Okay, I don't know, I see it differently. I feel like we might be overthinking this. It just set a goal and discuss with your parents or family members strategies for meeting that goal. I think we're just overthinking that now the teacher has to sign off or whatever. It's just, hey, set goals and make sure, encouraging the child to now go and talk with your family members and your parents about this goal. I don't feel like the teacher doesn't have to require that, but at least encourage that, because if we're setting goals and we want students to achieve them, the best way to achieve these goals is to have family support. So it does make sense to go back and discuss these. You know, you've got these goals. I encourage you to go back and discuss them with your parents or family. And it keeps the parent and family involved, which I always have thought that that's the whole point of education. We're wanting parents to volunteer. We're wanting more parental involvement. We've got an opportunity now to put that in our standards. And now I feel like we're just, I don't know, I guess I'm trying to understand, do we want parental involvement in schools or not? And then if we do, then we should probably start to show it within our standards at somehow.
Okay. I've got a question, clarifying question. Darren, maybe, and you can, whatever staff person wants to answer it. The way that I'm reading on this amendment, and that is when we have these are standards. So this is our standard, and we're in the compliance business to assure these standards are being met. And as I look into this on the requirement, I see these as requirements to check the list, check off. Did these things happen? And how did they happen? And does it happen for every student? And then my question, I guess my question is regarding the proposed change on standard 2.HF-1, how would you demonstrate, what would compliance look like on your side that LEAs are following that standard? What evidence would you seek for compliance? Okay, I'll turn this on.
Yeah, so I'll just reiterate, the standards are the learning goals or targets that are established by the Board of Education, or the priorities that are established. And if we picture this as standards-based, let's apply this into a standards-based grading system. There are a lot of different grading systems out there, but in a standards-based grading system, we would, as a teacher, I would look at that, and in order for me to determine whether Jody, for instance, is one of my students, is proficient in that, I need some evidence, like you're asking about, to know whether I can say that she's proficient on that particular standard or not. At that point, you get into the teacher's decision of how they're going to collect evidence. Are they going to do that in some kind of an assessment setting, a performance setting, or some other observation setting? So I don't know that I can answer that the way that you would like me to.
Well, there's no wrong or right answer. I'm just putting myself in on the.
Yeah, it's just a variety of approaches that teachers could have with it. The challenge, though, that the Standards Assessment Committee discussed and became aware of is anytime we require something to be done at home and evaluate that, gets really complicated for teachers for a number of reasons. So most of the standards you'll see, not just in this core, but in other core standards.
You've answered my question.
Okay.
Thank you. Board Member Lisa Cummins.
For as long as I can remember, I've had 5 children go through the public school system, or at least 4 of them, go through the public school system, and we've all had to sign those 20-minute, everyday, daily worksheets of reading. And so I'm sure that there's some signatures on some paper that could be had. The other thing is on R2775115, educator as a role model of civic and societal responsibility. The first one, it says the professional educator is responsible for compliance with federal, state, and local laws. Our state law ensures that parents are the primary role takers of their children's education. And if we're not including parents in these standards, then we're I believe, in my perspective, are not complying with the law. And that is not allowing teachers to comply with the law. And that's a big trouble for me. If they're not, as far as their ethics and their civic duties are concerned. So I think we should be accepting parental rights as being acknowledged in the health standards, especially such as these. The other thing is, I have experience with juvenile delinquents in my background. And the bottom line, at the end of the day, they always asked, where were my parents? Why weren't my parents involved? We have an opportunity to get parents involved here, to open up and bridge that communication gap. That is not happening, that we could start instigating. And so I think, especially with the health standards, I think this is appropriate, and I would encourage you to vote for this.
Okay. Chair Gravitt?
When you're looking at the amendments on here, I just want to make sure people understand that on Standard 3 HF1, it does say set a measurable short-term goal and identify people who can help achieve that goal. And I know that doesn't quite get at what you're wanting to get at, but from a standards and assessment perspective from the committee, our intention was to have the family involved, but our intention was also not to try to mandate things that can't happen in a standard, and also to not forget about the kids who don't have parents that they can check these things off with. That's why you leave those things to the local level for local curriculum. People is general enough, or trusted adult, and again, trusted adult is defined in the beginning as could be a parent, it could be a guardian, et cetera, et cetera. So we are not leaving family out, we are just opening it up to include everyone.
Board Member Lear?
My comment is pretty similar to Jenny's, but I just wanted to add to the things she said, especially referring to the definition that includes parent and is now the first word in that definition of trusted adult. As I represent a district that is predominantly single-parent families, and there is a sensitivity sometimes to children and families when even every standard reinforces that language and is sometimes not very comfortable for children to admit to or their parents. So I think that leaving it broader is really more helpful and more inclusive than trying to say trusted adult and then adding parent every time.
Board Member Cindy Davis?
Oh, I was just wondering if it would fill your concern or purpose if the word was maybe share, set a goal, and discuss strategies for meeting the goal and share with a parent or trusted adult.
Yes.
Because then that person could help coach them along. It is implied, I think, in Standard 3 HF.1, set a measurable short-term goal and identify family or friends who can help achieve that goal. But if you feel like it could be strengthened, would that be something that could be added to share with, but not something that would have to be monitored, to Vice Chair Cummins' point?
Are you making a motion?
I'm asking if that would fulfill you can amend your
Yes.
own motion if you want to, but I'm wondering if that might be an option to fill.
Did you want to make that as an amendment?
Sure.
Okay, and I
do I
think it's a
need
good
to wait for my
suggestion.
turn?
So are you ready to make an amendment to the amendment?
Sure.
And that would be Board Member Cindy Davis.
I'd like to amend, now I'm looking off of this, Standard 2.HF.1 to read, set a goal and discuss with your parents or family members strategies. Sorry, let me take that back. I'd like to amend Standard 2.HF.1 to read, set a goal and discuss strategies for meeting the goal with a parent or trusted adult. Share with a parent or trusted adult. Sorry, share with a parent or trusted adult, rather than discuss, which would need to be monitored.
Point of order? I don't know.
Okay,
I don't know if that's the appropriate thing, point of order or clarification.
Well, Well, she's making a,
Yeah,
Well,
but it's a
okay.
point of order to
Go
that.
ahead. It's point of order. I mean,
okay, well, she's trying to put an
can make it
amendment
better or
together.
fix
So
it.
we're going to get to the amendment, because that's what,
And it
are we
needs to be
helping her craft
seconded.
an amendment? And then we'll get to
I
it.
just-
So you're trying to put an amendment to this amendment, part 3 here. And how would you would,
It just replaces.
it replaces,
It says.
I wish we had
you
it.
know, I can't use that language, parent or trusted adult, because we've already decided that that language can't be used. So it just needs to say, with a trusted adult, parenthin, parent, yada, 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 parenthin. That whole same list that we use every time to define trusted adult.
Miss Lorraine, would you want to,
Well, you just have to repeat it.
okay, one more time.
Without the yada, yada, yada.
Okay,
Um,
this is on
Standard
standard 3.
2.HF.1.
Yeah.
Set a goal and discuss strategies for meeting the goal. Share with a trusted adult. Parenthin, standard list, parenthin, period.
We don't need that because it's
Oh, the parentheses part is the beginning of every standard, so I guess you could just put a period with trusted adult since it's defined earlier as a parent or other members.
So it'd be and with the trusted adult. Okay, so Miss Lorraine, will you repeat that proposed amendment? Amendment to the amendment? Okay,
Okay, the amendment to the amendment is on standard 2.HF.1 to read, set a goal and share strategies for meeting the goal, share with a trusted adult.
And discuss.
is that your proposed amendment? Do we have amendment to the amendment?
What, do they leave out a word?
What's that?
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes.
So when Lorraine restated the goal, it had changed the word in the top part from discuss to share. And I think that still needs to be discuss. I think that may have been a mistake. in the
Yeah.
restatement.
Discuss is in the beginning, and then share is at the bottom with share with the trusted adult. And share with the trusted adult.
So you're just adding and share with a trusted adult to the original wording.
Okay, so we have that figured out as your amendment to the amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
Are you speaking to it? Okay, do you want to speak to your amendment? Cindy?
I'm just trying to find something that would allow teachers to encourage students to share their goals with a trusted adult, parents, or whom they choose, but not have a discussion and come back and report type thing, because you can't really control what happens at home.
Okay. All right, discussion to the amendment. We have Vice Chair Brittany Cummins.
I'm not wholly opposed to this particular amendment. I think it's not a bad amendment. But I guess my question, it's not a question, but I'm a little bit worried that we're going to go through each of these one by one and say share with a trusted adult, because all of the, like everyone I think in here believes that a lot of these discussions are very appropriate and important to have at home with a parent or with a trusted adult. And so I guess, is there a better place for us to put in somewhere in each of the grade descriptions where teachers encourage students to have conversations with a trusted adult in regard to these standards? And would that alleviate some of the concern that we're having, rather than being very specific that these topics you should go home and speak to someone about?
Okay, we have a question from Vice Chair Brittany Cummins. Jody, Darren, or Jennifer, do you have a particular answer to that question? Is there
Was that the introduction?
a place?
Yeah, look at the introduction. We're looking at the introduction to the standards. That would probably be the most appropriate place, and it might already be represented as what we were looking for.
My comment was actually on the same
Okay.
topic. Two things. One, we were very concerned about requiring things, even share is still something that, you have to show compliance on. So we were concerned about including things that didn't happen in the classroom in the body of the standard. We did, in response to the comment, add the part in the introduction that says support parents and families. And I do think that would be the appropriate place to encourage sharing of the things taught in the classroom with families. I don't know the appropriate wording right now, and if we have a few minutes, we can probably come up with a motion to amend that portion. But I think that would be an overall place that also wouldn't command compliance from the teachers. So, but maybe direct the curriculum development in the LEAs.
Okay.
Potentially, you could just have a note to teachers with an expectation that encourages them to have students interact with their families around the content that's generic across the standards, so that we can stay away from board members coming around putting this everywhere, because the intent is everywhere, that they are sharing universally. So maybe just a statement with a note to teachers in the introduction to clarify the intention is that this is a interaction between home and school throughout the standards document. So opportunities afforded for that opportunity to happen at home. That might be one possible solution.
Encourage that.
Okay. Board Member Cindy Davis, you have?
I think that's a good idea, actually. I'm going to withdraw my motion. And I have heard now Michelle and Scott and Jennifer all use the word encourage when talking about encouraging to include or to share with parents. So maybe that's a word that could be used in the header or in the beginning portion, along with the sentence that you just said, or incorporated in that somehow.
Okay, is there any objection with that to withdrawing the motion? No objection? Okay, the motion is that proposed amendment to item 3 is withdrawn. However, we're still working through this. There were a few suggestions in that, so I know they're working on it, but I want to keep the dialogue alive. So, Board Member Bolter, then I'll come to you, Jenny.
So I like that idea of putting that. What I'm wondering is, could we have that also stated at, like, when we get to the kindergarten standards, that stated there, and then the first grade standards, second grade standards. That way, it's not only in the opening document, but it's with each standard. Because if somebody goes to the 5th grade standard, they may not see that. And if that's a possibility, like to just at the beginning of each of the standards, just say that first paragraph that we were going to rework, if that's a possibility.
Okay, which this is all part of our work, and I think the intent is there of what we're really wanting to do. And so there's some stuff in work that's being worked, but we don't have a motion to do it. But if the motion was crafted in a way to say that it's the board's intent or something to have that on each one, we can help craft one. Yes, before I go to Jenny, are you going to make another motion?
No, but can I make a comment?
Yes, comment. Okay.
So, in looking at the standards, as I stood back and looked at them, I said, how can we include families in such a way that it's not going to change every standard, that it's not going to be so cumbersome, that it's going to be a burden on teachers or educators? The children that are most in need of family support are probably not our children. They are probably the children that are going home to a single parent. And to encourage, I do like that idea, if we can incorporate that in. I just looked at some of the things in here that would be easiest for parents to be encouraged, for educators to be encouraged to influence and to help parents be part of the process. So the intent, I listened to all the 7.5 hours of dialogue, and I appreciate it. You guys did a great job. I'm not diminishing that. I did. Because this is important. And you know that, and I think that's the reason why we're having such dialogue even now, and I appreciate that. The point was to encourage families to engage in the process. It wasn't to diminish anyone, but when we I'm concerned the more we go trusted adult, it's like we're setting aside the valuable nature of what you're doing here, which is setting goals. I mean, we're talking second and third graders here. They're setting goals. And to encourage a parent to be part of that does not diminish education. It does not diminish any of that. Just one thought. I know, and I was looking to see if Rhett Larson was in here. He's not, but I know the All Stars program has a parental component to it for a reason, because it is a value that there is that engagement when you're talking about substance abuse, when you're talking about alcohol abuse. So the idea of including parents in this dialogue is not out there somewhere, or, you know, it is measurable. It is, and we included people, as broad as that is. I don't know who the child's supposed to report to, but to ask them to maybe talk with their parent about it, we're somehow straying. Anyways, I'm getting on a little bit of soapbox, and I don't mean to do that, but I'm just saying, if it encouraging in some way that we can do that, it would be of value for all children, not just a few. So.
Okay. Vice Chair Brittany Cummins.
I was just going to procedurally make a suggestion that since the discussion, if we're going to go the route of doing a more general term in the introductory statement, that it's no longer germane to the motion, which is Amendment 3, that maybe a board member propose a separate motion once we get to the other motions, that motion can be made from a board member.
I can withdraw my motion, and we can come back to that if it's not addressed.
Okay.
Well,
So-
on item 3.
Okay.
Let me turn this back on. Okay. I want to wait for that. You want to?
Do you want me to wait?
No, well, you're. Well, you're still. You're still. We're gonna
Okay.
be going through your amendments and stuff, but
Right.
I think you know what work's being done right now. So.
I actually. Okay.
Okay, but I think she was wanting to. Are you
Yeah,
going to
we can
withdraw your
encourage
3?
parent involvement if is that the dialogue we're headed? So, but that doesn't cover 4 for me because,
Well, we have 3 on the table. So
yes,
we gotta
so
get
should I
that.
with,
Okay.
yeah. Should I, go ahead.
Okay. Vice Chair Brittany Cummins.
I move to postpone this amendment till a little bit later in the meeting.
Okay, we have a motion to postpone. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Okay, do I move to 4? So I would like to move amendment number 4, make a motion that we approve it. And this has to do specific, okay, that's
Okay.
speaking to it, right?
We have your proposed number 4. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second, and we're going to go to, she's going to speak, she's going to do it right now.
Okay.
Board Member Earl to speak to your motion, but you cover that blue first.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that parents are the primary reference for medical information with standards adhering to family and community, common community values as listed below.
Okay, further discussion or clarifying questions, Board Member Bolter?
I don't know that this is germane to this particular motion, but it's just a general question that I just kind of have, is there a process for us here at USBE to ensure LEA curriculum aligns with standards? And one step further, to ensure teachers are following the curriculum? Because if there isn't, then there's really no guarantee any of the standards will be followed in the first place. So I'm just wondering if there is a process for that. And that, like I
know
said, I
it's
didn't know if
germane,
it was germane. So I can re-question that after we discuss
I'll
this.
take it because it's out there, and we've got a whole bunch of people eager to answer the question, and so this will be like our fastest response. Here we go. Who wants to take that on? Okay, Darren.
So that's a great question. It's actually an observation, I think. It's one of the challenges that education administrators have, is ensuring that the standards are taught. I'm going to use an analogy. the old Miller's analogy test. Auditors are to financial practices as assessments are to educational practices. So on your standards that you have assessments aligned to, you have a way to determine the level of learning that's occurring tied to those standards. On standards that you don't have assessments, which health is one of those, you rely on the local educators to select curriculum that's aligned with it, and then the responsibility of the teachers, which we do have a rule in the professional practices section that says as educators we're required to teach the Utah core standards as adopted by the Utah State Board of Education.
Okay, but we don't have a way to monitor and make sure that that's being done, basically. Okay.
Okay. Okay, we're speaking to number 4, Board Member Cindy Davis. Are you speaking to 4, or is it outside of 4?
If 4 is about parents again, I think this will cover a lot of the language, the parental language.
We have four on the table.
So should I share this after a decision is made on 4?
I would probably recommend that because I think we can foresee we still have 4 on the table.
I'd like to hear it first, to be honest with you, to see if it would cover this area or not. So.
Okay. Well, let's hear what you're proposing, but we still have 4.
Okay.
You could speak. Why don't you speak to 4, saying I intend to do something, or something like that.
Okay.
Maybe that would-
I'll speak to 4, saying that I intend to make a motion which incorporates Chair Bolter's idea of putting some language in at the beginning of each grade level instead of only in the introduction. And it would read this, and thank you to staff for helping out with this. This would be at the bottom of every section.
So it'd be at the introduction.
It would, there are those 4 paragraphs that are all the same, would be at the bottom. It would say, in implementation of the health education core standards, educators will encourage students to engage with parents and families as part of achieving the knowledge, skills, and dispositions in these standards. That would be at every grade level.
Okay. Thank you, Cindy. So we're still on 4, and I just want to speak to where all this dialogue is going, and I'm just bringing this up because I know how other boards are doing, and when I was on a local boards are really, really careful, and they do include parents on the health curriculum, and especially the delicate issues. That's high profile. I don't know of an LEA out there that's not, when policies and that are coming up, that are not open to as they're setting, well, even when they're getting their curriculum and that, and having parents and parent involvement, because they're there, they watch it really, really close, and they're sensitive to it. So I believe they still have a place, and I don't think it's absent in the process of getting the right curriculum, and also having parents and others at the table as this is being discussed. So we're speaking to number 4. Have you spoke to 4? Are we keeping? Where's my scorecard on 4? Okay. I'm kind of keeping track, so make sure everyone has a chance on 4. So, Vice Chair Brittany Cummins.
So I just first want to make a statement that any of my comments that I'm making, sometimes I feel like we're on 2 sides of something, like we're supportive of putting parents in, or we're not, that it's completely something opposite. And I just want to make a statement that I agree entirely that these conversations are essential with trusted adults, families, communities, all of those people that we've talked about, they're essential to the success of these students in order to implement any of these health standards. And so any of the comments that I'm making are not meant to be that I'm way over here, that parents and families should be out of the school, because I do not feel that way at all. But my problems with some of the wording are, make it difficult at a classroom level to interpret and understand what that means and what that might look like. So for example, Standard 2, SDP 3, families visit healthcare providers. Well, most of the time it's just me going to a healthcare provider, and people individually usually go to those things.
In second grade?
It's usually that individual student and a parent, right?
Right,
Or the respecting family and community held values. I, as a teacher, how do I interpret what that means as a community value or a family value, and understanding that I'm going to give you the basics. Now, please go home and integrate what you've learned here and talk to your family about it so that you can understand those things in the context of your family and your community, which may be different than my family and my community and those values that I hold. And so I worry sometimes that when we change the wording, that we're putting educators and some of these students in a place where, just as been stated before, where they misunderstand and they don't know, or they feel like they're in conflict. Whereas this says, here's just some facts and information. Now go home and talk to your parents, so you and your parents, in the context of your values and your family and what you believe and what you hold dear, can have this conversation in a place and not have to feel like your teacher has to uphold or understand your family values or where you're coming from. And so I'm concerned about the wording, but I feel very strongly that families are an important part of supporting and being a part of these students' lives.
Board Member Scott Hansen.
With regard to Amendment 4, I had the same concerns. When we talk about respecting family values and community values, we talked about this in the committee meeting. Putting a teacher in a position to try to determine what those are is very difficult, and different families in a school, we have very diverse beliefs, and I just don't think that's tenable to put a teacher in that position. Also, some of the emphasis here seems to be on having the kids take this to their parents, and I think the emphasis should really be on the parents drawing this out of their kids. And I'm wondering, I was thinking back on the discussion we had on sexual abuse, and there's actually a every other year training that's mandated by 53G 9207, where the LEAs have to give the parents or guardians of elementary school children training on recognizing the signs of sexual abuse and that sort of thing. I wonder if a more appropriate place to put some of this would be in that training, where we're talking directly to parents and saying, your kids are going to be learning about these things in the next year. You need to be involved in that. Because I put myself in the position of a poor kid whose parents are just not responsive. They go home and say, gee, I need an internet safety plan. The parents say, we don't care. And that happens, unfortunately, more often than we'd like to think. So, I don't want to be on the not pro-family side of this discussion, because I'm very pro-family. I just don't want to put our teachers in a position or our kids in a position that's not tenable for them.
I call the question.
Let me turn this on.
Okay. I call the question on number 4, on Amendment 4.
Second. I thought we had a few, but everyone is down getting ready for something else. Okay, we're going to end debate. It's called the question. We're going to end debate. Call to question. Let's vote to end debate. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, the motion before, the amendment before the board is Amendment 4, is item 4, before the board. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
No. Will the ayes be recognized? We'll do it's on the phone first. Who's on the phone?
Ellis,
You're an aye?
yes.
Okay, thank you. And then we have Board Member Lisa Cummins, Board Member Bolter.
I am. Sorry.
Thank
I
you.
had my hand up.
You're fine. Board Member Earl. Is Nielsen on the, Scott, are you still on the phone? Okay, well, the motion fails. Cindy, you were in the queue for something.
To make this next motion.
Okay.
She's on. She's
Oh, you're on. Oh, thank you. I'm looking,
You want me to?
sorry? Maybe I'll look over my glasses and not the bottom half here. Okay, Board Member Cindy Davis.
I move that at the end of each grade intro before strand 1, we add the following language. In implementation of the health education core standards, educators will encourage students to engage with parents and families as part of achieving the knowledge, skills, and dispositions in these standards. And I'd like to speak to the motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Discussion to that motion.
What's that?
Seeing none, I guess. Oh, do you want to speak to the motion? Sorry. I'm hurrying us along. Sorry. You want to speak to the motion, Board Member Davis?
I do. It seems like several of us have expressed here how we really feel that families matter and parents matter, but it's hard. You can't mandate what happens at home. You really can't. I feel like this is kind of a middle ground. Instead of going through every single standard and adding and changing the language, we are saying, hey, students, hey guys, share this stuff with your parents. Share this stuff with your families. They could probably help you out. You don't have to come back and report. You don't have to come back and fill out whatever. And I think by putting it in each grade level, it's adding it to a place of prominence. It's at the beginning of each one. And so I think that this is, it takes into account those people who maybe don't have parents at home that are going to be able to help them. But if they do, have them help you with these health standards. So that's what I'm speaking to the motion.
Board Member or Chair Gravitt?
I really do love the idea of getting parents involved and families in general, whatever that family looks like. But I think we might be losing our focus here a little bit, and maybe this is just me because this might not be a good comparison. But when I look at my language arts standards, it doesn't say share with parents. I mean, I feel like these things are a given. Good families are going to say, hey, how was school today? What did you learn? I feel like Board Member Hanson was saying, really the parents should be, initiating these conversations. I just don't know that it's our role of the state to say with every standard, hey, share the Pythagorean theorem with your parents, or share the theme of this story with your parents. And I understand health is a little bit different, but still there are topics in every subject. And is this the pathway we're going to go down, is to not legislate, but to make rules and standards that deal with, what kids have to do with their families? I feel like that should be a given, and it's embedded. I think we're heading down kind of a slippery road.
Okay. Board Member Lear?
My point was this committee went to a lot of effort to come to a definition of trusted adult, which I think was a really good idea. It's much easier to read. It's helpful. It is easy for a person who started at the beginning to continue to read trusted as adult to include families and other important people. And I think we are undermining that succinctness, if that's a word, by continuing to add pieces of this to every standard. So I guess I would I just support using trusted adult and continuing to not, and as part of that is a family or a family member, and not continue to separate family out for all the reasons we've said, many people have said over and over. I think I too, just for the record, believe in families. My children notwithstanding. So I think that we all do. We all support them. I think our differences are maybe how do we put these in standards that teachers can use, will read, are not too lengthy, are not too convoluted, our sentences don't run on and on. My suggestion.
Okay. Vice Chair Brittany Cummins.
I'd like to speak in favor of this motion, and I appreciate the motion maker going to the time to put this, find the right words that we can go forward with. The reason why I think it's different than any other content area is when we opened these health standards, one of the reasons why we opened them was to talk more and address more mental health of students. And mental health of students is connected to relationships, it's connected to families differently than language arts and the Pythagorean theorem. So there's different connections. In order for these standards to be effective and to address what it is that we opened them to address, I think that connection back to family, in some form, whatever that student has, whether it's a parent at home, one parent, two parents, an aunt or grandparent, or another trusted adult as we've defined it, that they make those connections, because the health standards as we've written them will be only effective when they make those types of connections with people outside of their peer group and their classroom.
Hey, I just invited Terry Shoemaker to kind of come up, and I just got a question. As we're navigating this, and we've got a lot of question on parents and their involvement, especially on standards, not on all standards and now, but our health standards, and that's been really there. And we have this proposed amendment here that's going to be that's being proposed to be put on every grade level. Do you see a problem with any of this being implemented? Do you have we're pushing, you're in the tranche with your people in that we have these standards, and I'm just, can you give us a Reader's Digest version of where we're going with this and how this will affect LEAs? Terry Shoemaker.
There we go. Terry Shoemaker with Utah School Boards Association and Utah School Superintendents Association. Actually, the health core standards are the ones that are likely to take 7 hours in a committee meeting. Okay? My experience as a superintendent and working with school boards across the state is this is the one area you're going to have conversations with parents about as much as anything else. So the fact that you've taken deliberate, careful time, both in the committee meeting as well as having these hearings outside, tells me that you're doing it exactly the right way. Exactly the right way. So what we need, though, is for this to be finished. Okay? That's what the school boards need. That's what the superintendents need. That's what our health teachers need. They need to know, a curriculum, a standard is what it is they're expected to teach. And kids are expected to learn and know and be able to do. That is what a standard is supposed to be, and so we need this to be finished. You're talking through the nuances of some things in ways that I think you're probably overdoing it, would be my opinion. That's an opinion. But I would also be respectful of the fact that you're expected to be careful about these things. And I understand that and appreciate that. But we need this to be done, because this has been sitting out on the table for quite some time now. And so having you be deliberate is fine. Getting to the points that you need to make here is fine. I would say to those who are concerned about the parents being engaged in this is the area that they are engaged in. Deliberately, purposefully, for lots of reasons, without me going through the specifics of the standards themselves. This is something mom and dad are very careful about. You know, we could go back to the technology piece. We could go back to the health curriculum as it relates to good touch, bad touch stuff. I mean, all of that. That's all part of the conversations that moms and dads are very, very careful about. But I also need to remind you, there's a lot of families here who don't have two parents in the home. And so that being the case, the school plays a very, very, very important role. Having had as a teacher and as an administrator, as a principal, and as superintendent, having had parents come to me personally about some of these issues and asking for help, I know it's important that you get this right. So I don't know if that's what you're expecting of me, Mark. I don't know if
Well,
I've answered the question or not.
Well, I'm on the parent side of it, but then also on the implementation piece. And I'm curious, is there anyone else that represents something on this? I'm more so on the implementation of these standards, if there's any concerns in that, of the way that we are going. Is there anyone in
I'm not
our-
hearing concerns about the
Okay,
way we're
thank you.
going.
You answered that.
relative
You answered that question. Is there anyone else in our audience that's, okay, I'm not seeing any, so what about, I'm going to drill this back into our staff and invite you. Do you see any challenges or anything in what's, we have an amendment here, but we're also taking this particular course. Do you see any challenges with implementation? That's my biggest concern. I'm liking where this is going, but I don't want to get closure on this and say, oh, this isn't, all these red flags jump up, because this is a time-sensitive issue with a lot of people waiting to act on what happens, hopefully today. Yes.
So from staff opinion, putting a language statement in here, I think articulates the power of including families in this conversation without having us to explicitly state it in every standard as we go. So I think it accomplishes what the challenge is here that you're trying to address while making it actionable by teachers in a way that doesn't kind of force it in every standard, but it says encompassing as a whole, this is the expectation for when you are teaching these standards. So we're supportive at this point.
It'll be Lisa. Okay, Board Member Lisa Cummins.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to say this. I will push and promote anything that does not make us look good on CECAS. So if you're not familiar with CECAS, CECAS is a national organization, Sexuality Information and Education Council of the United States. They came out against HB 136 that was just passed and signed into law by the Governor Herbert, that said that abortion is not a viable option after 18 weeks. If parents, I would disagree with Board Member Gravitt. I think parents need to be involved with ELA. Both you and I have had discussions about literature and if science and math are involved. I've had principals tell parents not to be involved with their math homework, so I would disagree there. But we are a pro-family state, and we need to keep that in focus and keep that in mind. And so anything that that continues to support that, to continue to support the children, I think the more we emphasize that, our health, mental health in our kids could go up. I have good hope and pride that families can help their kids. And if we partner with those parents, with our schools and our teachers, I think we'll have significant success in that. I'm just going to leave it there, that anything that keeps us off the positive side of CECAS is good in my book. So parents all the way.
Okay. Board Member Belknap.
Cindy was before me.
What's that?
Okay, I was just saying Cindy was before. I just want to call the question. We do have this on the table, right? I'm somewhere missing this.
Yeah.
Because we've had
But I think
comments.
there's another little piece ahead of it.
No,
To-
this is the motion.
I know, well, The motion was, there was another part of this that wasn't in every grade or. You're going to amend?
Yeah. We're waiting for the amendment. She called the question, so.
Could we have a call to question?
Okay, I'll call it.
Okay. Because that was what we were working on here, is because what's up here is not exactly what our amendment was. Board Member Cindy Davis.
Okay. I'm going to amend the amendment so it's not quite so heavy, to use their word. And this actually came from the writer that wrote the introduction, but this is a piece that I think that instead of just putting in the introduction, we can put it in at the intro of every grade strand. So the language would actually read, students should be encouraged to involve parents and families in the skills and lessons they learn. I wonder if our staff can that act as a standalone without, in the implementation of core standards, blah, blah? Can this act as a standalone in that same spot where we had the other? It can. They said it can.
So you have a proposed amendment to your amendment to read this instead of.
This basically says the same thing. It's just not so verbose.
Okay. We have. Yes. So it's.
Can I?
Yes. Board Member Ellis.
Board Member Davis. Can I ask Board Member Davis to repeat that? And then I want to speak to how it's worded.
Okay. Well, let me have Miss Lorraine repeat it. So, okay. Or do you have it here? I just want to make sure we get it.
So what am I repeating that?
Do you want me to read
First
it?
part?
No, this is, you want her proposed amendment, correct, Elisa?
Should be encouraged to involve parents and families.
Yeah, I think she's asking for the.
Okay. First, I'm going to tell you what it was and then what the amendment will be, since you're on the phone. Okay, I think that'll be easier. So the original amendment is that at the end of each grade introduction before Strand 1, add the wording, in implementation of the health education core standards, educators will encourage students to engage with parents and families as part of achieving the knowledge, skills, and disposition in these standards. So the amendment to that would be to basically replace all the wording with the following wording. Students should be encouraged to involve parents and families in the skills and lessons they learn.
Okay, thank you. Elisa, did you hear that okay?
Yeah, sorry, my connection's kind of poor right now, so hopefully I got that right. I just am trying to think through. My concern is when we send students to their parents to tell them what they learned, what happens when what they're learning, and in situations like health, other things that may differ with the belief set in the home. And so I'm just wondering if there's a way to word it so that they can discuss the things they've learned without it being like the students are taking this to the families, and then what happens when it completely differs with the values or beliefs in the home. Anyway, let me think through it, and if I have something come to mind, I will raise my hand again if I can think of something before the motion's made. Voted on.
Okay. You want to, Board Member Davis, was you able to speak to your proposed amendment? Okay. She did. Board Member Newell.
I just wanted to interject a little bit. I kind of sit back and kind of wait. This document is very detailed. What's going to happen in reality is the teachers are going to be able, they know the students, so they're going to convey this information in a way that they know those students can convey it to their parents. Sometimes it's going to be very simplistic. Other times there's going to be great detail. I think with the addition of this paragraph in this document, we alleviate a lot of the back and forth here and really get forward, as Terry said, to get this done, because we're hashing over things over and over again. From my point of view, I like to finish things also. But I know that the instructors will have a way to convey to each and every one of those students that they know personally and they understand on how they speak to their parents and how the parents speak to them and the teachers themselves. So having something simplistic like this is a great way to convey it, and it can be highlighted just like it is throughout the document so that teachers remember to convey that message to the students, to take that information home. Most of us know in reality, half of these kids aren't going to take anything home. And to be able to find another way that makes it simple for the instructor, even if she types out a little, strip of paper each time she has a new message to send with that student, that may be the case. They're never going to digest all this information. But I think to just make it simple, understand that the conveyance of the information is going to be different per student, then we can start to move forward. That's my 2 cents.
Okay. Did you have, you're good? Okay. So we're back to amendment. Okay. What's that? Oh, yeah, you can call the question.
I move to call the question.
Do I have a second?
Yes, second.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, motion passes. So we're going to vote on the amendment to the amendment, which is to read, students should be encouraged to involve parent and family in the skills and lessons they learned. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed? Those opposed? Okay, the motion passes on the amendment.
Now can we just get rid of
So we're back to the original amendment, which is, here we go.
Okay, the amendment now reads that at the end of each grade introduction before Strand 1, add the wording, students should be encouraged to involve parents and families in the skills and lessons they learn.
Okay, that's a motion, the amended amendment. Do I have to say it? That's the amended motion that's before the board. Any discussion to the motion? Okay, seeing none, we're going to vote on it. So we restate it again. Does everyone have an understand what we're voting on? It's on the board. But for the people on the phone, will you restate the motion? We're going to vote on it, guys.
All right.
Okay, this is the restatement again. That at the end of each grade introduction before Strand 1, add the wording, students should be encouraged to involve parents and families in the skills and lessons they learn.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, I'm actually making, I'd like to move Amendment 5. Just vote up or down. We don't have to discuss this. Either you like it or don't like it already. So,
So you have a proposed
yeah, the proposed Amendment 5, and it's adding to.
Okay, well, so is there a second? Second. Okay, discussion to, let's see, you want to speak to the motion? And it's
Just
in
that
the blue.
I think it's important we have dialogue about what families are and supporting that.
Okay,
And
the
so it's-
blue, the blue would
yep.
read that this
That
motion is
important
to add
connection.
standards that support and strengthen home
Yep.
relationships. And that way everyone's, okay. Discussion to that particular
Yep.
motion. Board Member
I'd
Belknap.
like to make a comment too as well.
Okay,
when you have time.
all right, I'll put you in the queue. Board Member Belknap.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. I'd be interested to, if the committee talked at all about these two ideas, because I think they're really important. So Chair, who do you want to answer that?
So your question is to staff. Did
Well, to anyone
well,
about committee
I'll go to
discussion.
staff first. Was this discussed in committee? It's like a yes, no. And then I can go to the. Okay, let me turn this on just a sec.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know if the question is for the standards writing committee?
For the
standards-
committee. Mostly the committee. Well, I guess both.
In the committee. The Standard and Assessment Committee, I believe. Was this discussed in the standard, these topics
Anywhere.
discussed in the Standard and Assessment Committee?
Standards and Assessment Committee, I believe, went through a lot of these, and we went kind of line by line, and there were drafts that were given in motions. But yes, we discussed strengthening families in Standards and Assessment Committee.
Okay, and then I'll direct the question to the chair of the Standard and Standard and Assessment Committee. Also, do you have anything to add?
I think that's one of the reasons in the introduction we added, let's see, the line about, with the support of families. We discussed a lot of this. I don't know that we discussed this particular language. At times, I think you have to go back to, like, if you're going to put language like discuss the importance of supporting and strengthening family relationships, you have to talk about all family relationships. We got into that a little bit, but I think at some point we have to trust the experts who are on the writing committee, and if they didn't put these in, there's probably a reason. That's kind of my take, but as a committee, we did discuss a lot of this. I don't know if other committee members have specific recollection, but that's why we were careful to put that in the introduction without also deciding what the standards should be for when we're not the experts.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Got it. Tomorrow, Nansen. Did that answer your question?
Close enough.
Okay. Board Member Linda Hansen that's on the phone.
Thank you. Something that we did talk about in committee that hasn't been brought up that I think is important is that one of the comments that was made often about the standards we have now is that they're way too long. There's just way too many of them. So unless I'm not in favor of adding a lot more standards and making them longer. So anytime we're adding more standards, it has to be really compelling for me to vote for it, because they're just not getting to all the standards, because there's so many of them. So we want it concise, and we want them to be able to get to all those standards. Thanks.
Okay. Board Member Bolter.
I was just going to speak in favor of adding these two standards, just because it seems to align really well with what came out of one of the, I guess, suggestions from the SHARP survey in relation to suicide prevention, and that where they said we would like the USBE to consider expanding the core health standards to include materials that focus on improved family relation skills. So I feel like that aligns with what came out of that recommendation. And so if we're taking the time to do the SHARP survey and we have a suicide task force, then this falls in line with that recommendation. And it is in fourth grade. I would love for it to be throughout the whole standards, but at least at some point at least from 4th through 6th, to discuss that, just because it aligns with that, and it seems like that recommendation came as a way to help with suicidal thoughts and mental health.
Board Member Scott Hansen.
I'd just like to mention that as a committee, we were very respectful of the public comment that we got. We tried to go through everything that came in. I am really leery about adding new standards that we haven't put through that process. We haven't had a chance to look at public comment. We haven't even had a chance to look at writing committee comment on this sort of thing. So I'm leery about adding entirely new standards for that reason.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other discussion or comments on the proposed amendment item number 5, so let's put it to a vote. All those in favor of the amendment item number 5, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, will the ayes be recognized? Before I have you raise your hand, let's do the phone, or do who's on the phone first. The ayes on the phone, will you identify yourself?
Ellis.
Nielsen.
No, okay. Thank you. And then those here in our board meeting, will the ayes raise their hand? Board Member Cindy Davis, Board Member Lisa Cummins, Board Member Bolter, Board Member Earl. That's 6-4. So the motion doesn't pass. Board Member Earl.
Thank you. I just remind everyone that this is part of the process, meaning that I wasn't on the committee, and I did get to go attend, but I was reassured that this was part of that process, that there could be modifications here, and that this was the time for me to bring it forward. I did submit things, and I did have someone speak, but they weren't able to speak about all the concerns and things, but I do appreciate all the work. So I'm not diminishing that, and I hope you understand that I was reassured that this was part of the process. When I said, when do I bring this forward? It was, you got to wait for them to finish their thing. Then you got to wait for them to finish their thing, and now you can bring it forward. And so I don't intend to take away from that, so I hope that's understood. Okay. So number 6 is putting the success sequence into our standards.
So I'm seeking, you're proposing
I'm
amendment.
proposing a motion that we
Proposing
make an amendment and add number 6.
Okay,
So-
is there a second?
Second.
Second? Do you want to speak to your motion?
And I will speak to my motion. The success sequence has to do with 3 things that there's been quite a bit of research done on this. It's Ron Haskins and Isabel Sawhill, and it's 3 norms that are occurring in society that are creating both financial success and family success in life. There's many variables associated with it, so it's one of those things that's more investigative than it is concise, but the standard or the outcomes are very compelling. So it's graduating from high school, working, getting a job, and then marriage before children. Those 3 things, families are, I was just looking for my numbers real quick here, like 91% of families are not in poverty that follow those, individuals are not in poverty that follow those 3 things. I just think it's very responsible for us in the high school years to talk about things that create success as adults. And anyways, I would encourage us to take a look at those 3 and to add those in. So as well as another thing to keep in mind, and this is under the explain the success sequence and how it creates safe and secure environments for children. Children that are in cohabitating relationships are very much more likely to be at risk of abuse of one kind or another. And so I think it fits in properly there, knowing that sequence creates a more safe environment for children. So that's my motion.
Board member discussion to the proposed amendment or clarifying questions. Board Member Belknap.
I have a little bit of concern here about using some research that is out there and literally mentioning it in here, using success sequence, which it may, probably never will be, but may be debunked, or the concept of success sequence. So that concerns me.
Okay. I'm not seeing any other questions or comments, so the proposed amendment before the board is, the amendment is number 6. So I'll put this to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed?
No.
Will the ayes be recognized? We'll do with, we'll count the ones on line, or on the phone first. So who are ayes that are on the phone?
Scott, I'm an aye.
Okay, so do I have this right? I have Board Member Scott Nielsen, Board Member Ellis, and then, that's who I heard. And then here in our board meeting, Board Member Lisa Cummins, Board Member Bolter, Board Member Earl. So the proposed amendment doesn't pass.
Okay, I'd like to
Member
make motion that we, that we pass amendment number 7 on.
So your proposed, your motion is amendment number 7,
Yeah.
as outlined here. Okay.
Yep, and to replace advocate with influence and support, positive, and it would read as such. Mental and emotional health teaches students how to influence and support positive mental and emotional health of self and others. Do you want me to speak to that? Or do we
Well,
need
let me get a second first. Do we have a second?
Oh, second.
We have a second. Board Member Earl, will you speak to your motion?
Yeah, my concern is advocate suggests something more than just merely helping another student or kind of looking out for them. It actually suggests something, to me it suggests, and some of the lobbying entities out there that are youth advocates, and I'm not talking about youth advocates as far as youth that are trained to advocate for youth, but actually entities that, the youth advocates suggest almost an adult role that's being taken on by youth themselves. When you're advocating for someone, you're taking on a certain amount of responsibility for that individual to proactively do something more than to help them or support them. And anyway, I don't see where our standards actually support that. There's a couple of, the only one that may do that is number 8, and I'll talk to that in a minute. But
Let me restate the motion before we get into discussion or
Okay.
questions. And your motion is to replace advocate with influence and support positive. And then it would read throughout this document as outlined at each grade level. Here's how it would read. Quote, mental and emotional health, MEH, teaches students how to influence and support positive mental and emotional health of self and others. So discussion to that proposed amendment. Board Member Cindy Davis.
I just have a question for the committee as to how they were defining advocate. I just looked it up. The definition here is a person who publicly supports or recommends a particular cause or policy. There's another one that says publicly recommend or support, but I'm wondering how the committee defines it in these health standards.
Okay. Jody, you want to respond to that? Your light is on.
I can. We didn't have a written out definition yet on that. That was a recommendation. However, when we were saying advocate, it was help seeking.
Do you have a follow-up on your question?
So help seeking or help giving?
Possibly either. Would you like an example?
Sure.
Under this.
Okay.
Because this is in mental and emotional health, advocating for someone that tells you that they may be considering suicide would be talking to a teacher, counselor, resource officer, principal, using the Safe UT app, things like that.
Okay. A follow-up?
Yeah, so you said that there was a recommendation to define advocate, so will that be forthcoming? A
As a
definition.
result of when the standards are adopted by the board, then yes, we will go through and make sure all the definitions, but there's no reason to define advocate if we don't use it, so we haven't done it yet. So if advocate is in there,
It will
yes,
be
that will be the
defined.
definition.
Okay.
Okay. Board Member Scott Hansen.
Yeah,
I think on that subject of advocate, I was thinking more of person who pleads on someone else's behalf is kind of what's written here. So if your friend's in trouble, you'd contact someone, get them some help, that kind of thing.
Board Member Belknap.
I actually really appreciate this, that you're going to have some influence and some support positively of mental health. So I really like this one.
Board Member Lear.
And I think that these are, I'd always rather use one word instead of 5. And I think advocate seems like it says to me what the things that are being described here say. And I think these are also training issues, as Scott Hansen mentioned some time ago.
Okay. Chair Gravitt? Oh, sorry. I turned yours back on. Sorry.
This is a very common word in the teacher world, like advocate, stand up for, help, be kind to. Like, that's the connotation, and I kind of agree with, I do agree with Board Member Lear that one word is better than several. It's clear.
Okay. I'm not seeing any other.
Can I speak to this? Can I
Yeah.
do a follow-up? I don't agree. I think advocate implies something more than just support. And I think it's the something more that's implied is what adults do for children, not what children do for children. And so therefore, I have concerns about this particular word for that reason. I feel like that you're adding 2 words, not a whole bunch of words, but influencing is what we do for children. And I agree that children need, youth need someone to advocate for them, but we're asking youth to advocate for youth. Just a quick example, my daughter did, when she was in high school, she had a friend that came to her, someone she didn't know well, but someone she knew, and said, this happened to me on a date, this situation and such, and then she came home and said, Mom, I don't know what to do. We carried on some discussion. She went back and she did talk to the appropriate adults that she needed to talk to. But it was an adult interaction that was the advocate. She helped in creating the support element. I'm concerned that this particular word advocate has many far-reaching definitions, and it's concerning. I think that the influence and support or positive support are what youth should be doing, not advocating. So.
Okay. Board Member Lisa Cummins.
Being a mother of a student who's on Hope Squad, this gravely concerns me. They are not trained to advocate. They are trained to support. They are trained to influence, to be there as a friend, but they are not advocates. They go to their counselors and their teachers and their administrators for advocacy. Beyond that, if something were to happen on their watch, these kids cannot handle it. They're very vulnerable. And if to place that advocacy part upon them places them in a dangerous risk category from what I've seen. I will not be voting for that.
Okay, there we go. Board Member Scott Hansen.
Just briefly wanted to mention, we did discuss this in our committee meeting, and I believe it was Mark Watterson that was there from the writing committee. And this is a word that they selected. They wordsmithed all of this before they sent it to us, and I believe the meaning is to speak on someone else's behalf. That resonates with me. That's what we want the kids to do, is to speak up on someone else's behalf.
For their sexual actions.
Thank you, I see that. Okay, not seeing any other discussion on this particular item. The proposed amendment number 7 that is before the board is to replace advocate with influence and support positive throughout the document as outlined at each grade level. Here's how it would read, quote, mental and emotional health, MEH, teaches students how to influence and support positive mental and emotional health of self and others. Okay, we'll call this to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Will the ayes raise your hand and be recognized? Oh, okay. Board Member Belknap, Board Member Lisa Cummins, Board Member Bolter, and Board Member Earl. Who on the phone?
Ellis.
Board Member Ellis. Any other ayes on the phone? Okay, that's 6. The motion doesn't pass.
Okay, I make a motion,
Let me
Oh.
let me just dive into one because I want to
okay.
mix it up whenever there's a chance, when there's this pause, if there's another proposal, we'll
Yep,
stay
mix it
close
up.
to this. Board Member Cindy Davis.
I just want to say, I'm really only okay with the word advocate in there if it's defined as we've discussed here. So do we need to make a motion here that it
Yes.
is going to be defined, or is it
No,
just
let's define it.
is going to be?
Yep.
Thank you. I can use that definition, yes.
Okay, let me turn, is your mic on?
She's magic.
It would be great.
Because we're talking about this word, we're saying what it means, but it's like.
Okay, the question, there is a question from Board Member Davis, is it,
And I do believe in committee, we wrote down the definition. It's not available yet because we don't have standards to put the definitions to. But that definition was absolutely discussed. It's written down, it's ready to go. So yes, that will be the definition that will be used.
okay.
Are we
Board-
done
Board
mixing it
Member-
up?
Well, Board Member Bolter, did you have,
Okay.
okay, here we go.
I just had a comment that perhaps in the future, if we could have that definition, that if we decide to go with that word, that way we're not discussing back and forth and trying to figure out what it means. If we had that definition, oh, is it in the backup? Where in the backup is it at? Because so I looked through that
Okay,
and I don't
can-
remember that. Okay.
Okay, I got to turn your
Health
mic
terms.
on.
Okay. Okay.
So where would that, what was the answer to the
On
question?
the board
Maybe at least
backup for health
brought to
standards
attention.
that were in the committee report, all of the documents that were discussed in committee are there. And all the terms and definitions, although there probably we added some and I was typing, so it may not be on that board backup because it was edited through committee. And so it would be added in now as a result of last month's committee.
Okay.
Does that
Thank you.
answer your question?
Yeah, because I just felt
The health
uncomfortable
terms are
with
there,
that
and we
term not
added-
having it defined.
Right, and we added several terms throughout as the 7.5 hours went through.
Okay, thank you.
Board Member Earl.
All right, so number 8, amendment number 8, I would like to recommend that on standard 5, SDP-1, that we change explain personal responsibility to develop strategies on how to help.
So it's everything that's listed
Yep,
here.
right there, and I don't know why 5.2's on there, I apologize.
Okay, you don't need to read all of it for your motion. Like I said, we have a motion, this is item 8, proposed amendment number 8. Is there a second?
Oh, second.
Then, okay. And do you want to speak do you want to speak to your amendment?
Yeah, just that, how do you, when we're talking measurable, how do you measure, explain personal responsibility? And I think we're putting the responsibility on kids. We're saying you have to do this, or it's your responsibility to do this. We develop strategies on how to help others. That's what CPR is, that's what a crisis line is, that's what 911 is. And then allow them to do that. Oh, I did cross out down below, help. So I hope that's included. Did you get that, Lorraine? Sorry. Okay, you did. All right. So that's my reasoning for that.
Okay. I'm not seeing any, we have a motion and a second. Just one sec, Jennifer, let me get Janet Cannon. Okay.
I like this amendment, and I think I worry a little bit about explain personal responsibility to help others, because I think, how do we tell our kids to help someone who's bleeding who might have AIDS or that kind of thing. I think it's better said, develop strategies on how to help others and demonstrate how to contact appropriate emergency resources. I think that's more protective of the kids, and I favor that amendment.
Okay, Chair Gravitt? Oh, I keep doing this wrong, so there we go.
I just would like to hear from Jody or from the writing committee. I think we have to remember that verbs have certain meaning and depth of knowledge. And I think there was a sequencing when we're looking at a lot of words. So when you change explain to develop, you're changing the depth of knowledge. And I don't know if that probably was a consideration in the writing committee because you're going step by step. Develop is a level 1, explain is a level 1, whereas develop. So can you speak to that? Was there a reason for those words? Would it change the sequencing of the depth of knowledge?
Jody, will you speak to that or somebody else from, okay.
Right,
So explain was used because this was the kind of the first time that we were asking the
And
kids
we need you really close to the mic so that people can hear.
Okay. Explain was this was the first one where we were asking the kids to kind of act for CPR. And so that's why it was explain. I don't know that develop strategies on how to help would take away from that at all. So I don't know that this amendment changes the outcome and the purpose of this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for answering the question. Any other clarifying questions or comments? Board Member Scott Hansen?
I guess despite that comment, I'd still like to make a motion to amend to explain strategies on how to help others instead of develop strategies, to keep the wording the same. I don't think it changes the intent, but I think it keeps the integrity of the document. And we may have unintended consequences as we go to the next step and the next step by changing that word.
Is this, Board Member Hansen, if I was hearing that correctly, it sounded like you're proposing an amendment to this amendment.
Yes, that's an amendment to
And it would be
the motion.
to,
Amendment to, excuse me, so propose amending the amendment to explain strategies on how to help others.
Just take out developed.
okay.
Instead
Okay,
of develop
so-
strategies.
Okay, so we have a proposed amendment here and a second. Did you want to speak to that?
I
I'm gonna
think
give
I
you another
already
chance.
did.
I knew you just did.
I
so
think I already
wanna-
did out of turn,
I
so just
promised in a
remember what I
letter
just said and put it in right here.
Which, yeah, we're trying to let you, make sure you had every opportunity to speak to it.
I appreciate it.
In that letter I sent out. So, Board Member Carol Lear.
And I think we're forgetting an important phrase in there, and that is personal responsibility. I personally want teachers to encourage children to take personal responsibility for helping others. I'm absolutely committed to that. Some of you may disagree, but I would like my children, my grandchildren, to take responsibility for helping others. And I like the personal responsibility, not just explaining strategies, but developing, or I forget the initial word, that is explain personal responsibility. I think
Okay,
we're
George.
missing the point if we're talking about explaining strategies.
Okay, so you're speaking against?
I'm speaking against
Okay.
the
All right.
motion to amend and for the original language, which I think is exactly what I
All right.
would want for my children and all children.
Board Member Bolter.
Thank you, and I'm going to speak for this. I like explain strategies on how to help. Personal responsibility, I feel like it can be really heavy for a child if they're talking with a friend that talks to them and talking about their mental health, and they want to commit suicide, and then what if they go through with it, and now that child feels personally responsible because they weren't able to do anything to help them. And so if we're going to talk about personal responsibility, I'm personally responsible for what I do for myself, but I'm not personally responsible for what somebody else chooses to do. I can help them, I can talk with them, I can
Board
talk
Member
with an
Bolter.
adult, so that's the only
I
reason.
promise I would dive in. You started off on your You started off going, well, you went from the proposed amendment to,
No, I was still speaking to,
you're going, yeah.
oh,
We're
I'm
speaking to
sorry.
the
We're
amendment to the
speaking
amendment, and you
to the amendment.
jumped
That's why I
that and you
forgot.
went back. So I
Well,
just,
because
and
Carol
it's easy
Lear
to do,
spoke
so we're
to
just
the
trying to
amendment.
navigate that. So we're
So I
being
was
okay.
just, okay.
So the proposed amendment that was seconded was
So just
to
remember
take
what I just
develop
said for the
out
next time.
and put explain. And that's the amendment to the amendment. So we're okay. We're part of the process. Any other discussion to the proposed amendment to the amendment? Seeing none, we're going to vote on this, and the proposed amendment to the amendment was to take out the word develop and insert explain. This is the amendment to the proposed amendment. Okay, we're going to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No. Will the ayes raise your hand and be recognized? Board member Cindy Davis, Cannon, Hanson, Newell, Belknap, board member Lisa Cummins, Bolter, board member Earl, Vice Chair Brittany Cummins, Mark Huntsman. Who online is in favor of the amendment to the amendment?
Ellis?
Ellis is? Is Hanson?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. So now we have an amendment to the proposed amendment number, or item 8. We following that? So now amendment 8 reads as how it is shown, with one exception, that developed is striked, explained is inserted. Speaking to the proposed amendment, which I can call it amendment. So, but I just want to make sure we're tracking. I'm not seeing any, so let's vote on it. The proposed amended amendment number 8 would, I guess we do. They're coming up.
Included in amendment 8 as written is standard 5.SDP2. I just want to clarify.
Let me turn, okay, here we go.
That's not part of it, right?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. So this amendment only includes 5.SDP1. Is that?
That was my error.
Yeah.
Okay. As written, it includes another standard, which.
Okay. Board member Lisa Cummins.
I am voting for the changes because I'm concerned that there are laws going across the country that make it criminally liable for not rendering assistance in helping someone, which I think is wrong. I'm not going to be held responsible. I've had an experience where I witnessed a situation in my body, my mind froze. And unless you're training constantly for how to respond, like going to CPR classes, first aid classes, community classes like that, you don't know how you're going to respond until you're in that situation. And so I would rather prefer to develop strategies and support what Board Member Earl has written. So thank you.
Board Member Gravitt, thank you.
Could I have Mark Watterson from the Writing Committee speak about this amendment, explain personal responsibility versus develop strategies, since you maybe have some background and can give us some of your expertise? Is that okay, Chair? Yeah.
Okay, we want to invite Mr. Watterson to come up. Will you introduce yourself, your full name and that? So I'm going to turn this on. So what was your question? What did you want explained, Chair Gravitt?
Pardon me?
What was your question again?
Will you talk about, I just want to make sure, explain personal responsibility versus develop strategies, like what the difference is from CPR perspective, for example, or any comment, feedback you have for that?
Sure, and I first came up because as part of the initial discussion, there was a question of addressed to the staff or people that were on the writing committee, so that's why I offered to come up. As far as the development and the process and learning for children, the word explain was used originally and as has been amended as part of that development sequence of how they understand. And so we explain in this grade, and then maybe we'll have them demonstrate in the next grade, and so forth. So that's why the word explain was used. Something that I did want to address was in the proposed amendment, we are taking out the words, let's see, so as amended, it would read, explain strategies on how to help others and demonstrate how to, and then we're taking out help or contact. And so as far as the progression and the understanding of how to help, we felt it was important to include that section of how to help or contact the appropriate emergency resources so that children understood, how do I respond to if my friend scrapes their knee or something like that. So there's actually some demonstration that goes on. So that's why we felt it was important to keep that to include that language of not only explaining how to help, but also demonstrating how to help as well. So
Thank you.
just for some context.
Okay. Board Member Lisa Cummins?
Michelle was first. Did you want to speak, Michelle? Okay.
Well, she,
I'm concerned with the personal responsibility part. I mean, if I have a skin condition, I was scraped a lot, but nobody went and helped me, and I don't give them responsibility for doing that. That's my job, right? To say, I need help, I need fixing. I don't want to give that responsibility and make them feel guilty or in future make them criminal for not helping me, right? I think that sets a mentality of grooming, of accepting that kind of law, and I'm not willing to go there. So that's why I'm voting that language down.
okay. Board Member Scott Hansen?
I'd like to amend again to include the words help, or I would have included that in my first amendment. I didn't realize that had been
Are you
stricken
proposing an
below.
additional amendment?
So propose an additional amendment to have the first sentence of Standard 5 SDP 1 read, explain strategies on how to help others and demonstrate how to help or contact the appropriate emergency resources, and then the EG list.
Is there a second?
Second.
Did you want to speak to your proposed amendment?
Please, I just believe, as Mr. Watterson pointed out, if we're going to explain how to help others, we should demonstrate how that's to be done. That's just to reinforce that. So the language that would be removed is still the personal responsibility portion of it, but we would continue to both explain and then demonstrate.
Okay. I want to jump in on this a little bit. The way I read this is it says it explains strategies on to help others, and so there's already a strategy on how to help. I'm just seeing it, and now it's coming back, demonstrate how to help again.
So we're going to demonstrate how to help or contact. So we want to teach it, explain it, and then demonstrate how to do that. Pick up the phone, dial 911. So it's a two-step process there.
So there's a demonstration piece and an explanation piece.
Yes.
Got it. So that's what's implied. Thank you. Board Member Jenny Earl.
That's good. That's what I was going to say too. I didn't identify it with the demonstrate. I looked at it as redundant, so I appreciate adding that back in. So yes.
Okay. Without objection, I'm not seeing any. We'll make that. I think we can make that correction without doing an amendment. We good? Okay. Board Member Bolter.
Oh, I was just going to call the question.
Okay, we have a second?
Second.
Second? Okay, we're going to vote. On the call to question, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Voting is unanimous. So the amendment before the board, the amended, is to change the wording to explain on standard 5.SDP.1 to read, explain strategies on how to help others and demonstrate how to help or contact appropriate emergency resources, e.g. first aid, CPR, poison control, 911, mental health crisis lines, animal control, non-emergency lines for different situations. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
What now?
Now,
All right.
good to see a smile. And it's been a long time since
I've
we
been
had a break.
smiling.
So,
And then I would like to make a motion for number 9, which is
Your motion is, you're proposing amendment,
amendment number
Item
9.
number
Oh,
9.
I'm sorry. I'd like to propose amendment number 9, which is
Okay.
under the safety and disease prevention to remove their role in protecting themselves and others and replace it with setting a positive example for themselves and others by avoiding unintentional risks. That's,
risk, injury, disease.
yeah,
and-
risk,
yeah,
injury,
the rest-
disease,
wait,
student
how-
will
rest
learn
of
and
how it
adopt
reads.
behaviors which will maintain and enhance health.
All right, thank you.
And it's kind of along the lines of the last two. Oh, I need a second.
Okay, before I get into do we have a second?
Second.
Second?
It's along the lines of the last two. The role in protecting themselves and others, a child's role in protecting themselves and others. Protecting others, who has the role of protecting children? Setting a positive example, helping avoid that kind of thing children have, that is their role, but to actually, the role of adults is in protecting children. And so whether it's getting help or that kind of a thing, which we've addressed earlier with leaving advocate in there, that I think in this case, it's the same thing, that safety and disease help students understand their role in setting a positive example for themselves and others. Anyways, that's my recommendation.
Okay. Discussion to the proposed amendment?
Prevention, and I have it here. Because the last one.
Seeing none, we're going to vote on this. I'll read it, which will be, the motion is in safety and disease prevention to replace the wording, their role in protecting themselves and others to safety and disease prevention, SDP, helps students understand their role in setting a positive example for themselves and others by avoiding unintentional danger, risk, injury, or disease. Students will learn and adapt behaviors which will maintain and enhance health. That's a motion. Board Member Scott Hansen.
I'll speak against this amendment because I do believe that children have a role in preventing or protecting others from unintentional danger. A simple example of a kid who's walking out in the road in front of another car, a car or something, to pull him back and tell him to look both ways, that sort of thing. And I think we need to promote that. This doesn't say personal responsibility. This leaves it at their role in prevention. And I think that can be discussed by teachers with them and should be discussed.
Any other discussion to the proposed amendment? I'm not seeing any, so I'm going to restate it again, and we're going to vote. This is on the amendment number 9. I would like, that would read where disease prevention to replace the word, their role in protecting themselves and others, to safety and disease prevention, SDP helps students understand their role in setting a positive example for themselves and others by avoiding unintentional danger, risk, injury, or disease. Students will learn and adapt behaviors which will maintain and enhance health. Okay, we're going to vote on this. All on this proposed amendment. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Will the ayes be recognized? Board Member Earl, Board Member Bolter, Board Member Lisa Cummins. Any ayes on the phone?
Ellis.
Elisa.
Elisa? Okay, that proposed amendment does not pass.
Okay, I'd like to make an amendment. Oh, wait.
Don't know what to say. Okay.
All right,
I'm
I'd like to
sorry,
make
we-
an amendment to rephrase these particular standards to be listed in a positive message. Should I read through those? Would you
Yeah,
like me to?
they're short.
Okay, so standard 1, MEH1, define what kindness is and is not and demonstrate how to be kind to oneself and others. Compare these actions with bullying. Standard 4, HF4, to change from distinguish between healthy and unhealthy relationships to list characteristics found in friendships that have positive or negative outcomes and how to strengthen friendships. And standard number 4, MEH2, to remove practice strategies to manage inappropriate or harmful comments and behaviors from others, to cite examples of how courage and grit resilience have helped oneself or others overcome hardships, harmful comments, or social peer pressure. And standard 6, SAP1, remove practice ways to resist negative peer pressure in a variety of situations and environments. Change to give examples of how a person's decisions can be positively or negatively influenced by others, including peers.
We have a proposed amendment number 10. Is there a second? Second. Did you want to speak to your?
Yeah, I'll just speak to it real quick. I just think focusing on positive relationships, on friendships, and turning things in a more positive direction, I think has a greater impact on youth and the ability to teach in a way that's going to impact them in their classroom and in their home.
Okay. The proposed motion before the board is to rephrase the below listed standards to focus on a positive message as stated on the screen and also as read. I'm going to shorten that a little bit and see if there's any discussion.
That's fine.
Vice Chair Brittany Cummins.
My only question on it is a standard 4HF4. I like the positive twist to it. However, we change relationships to friendships, and I think there's more relationships that need to be discussed than just friendships. And so I would like to amend the amendment to, on 4HF4, say list characteristics found in healthy relationships that have positive or negative outcomes and that strengthen relationships. So I would say strike out friendships in both places and put healthy relationships in the first one and relationships alone in the second one.
Okay, I'm catching up. We have a second to the proposed amendment. Who hollered that? Was that?
Belknap.
Belknap, thank you.
Oh, sorry, sorry, healthies isn't going to work in the first one. So sorry, just relationships, not friendships, so, sorry.
Okay. So
I read it again.
Where's it at again?
So,
This is?
sorry. My amendment would be to strike out the word friendships in the amendment and replace it with relationships in standard 4HF4.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on a proposed amendment to the amendment. Is there discussion? Seeing none, Board Chair Earl.
Or grab it.
I mean,
First
hold it.
name's the
No,
same.
grab it, sorry. I've got it all. I get Jenny and Jennifer. Grab it, Chair, grab it. Thanks.
I just want to talk about that we discussed, I think we discussed this almost word for word in committee, and there were a couple of reasons why it got voted down. One of them is with the kindness element, that's in first grade, that's in standard 1 HF3, so it's a progression. So you have kindness first, and then you move to bullying, which then kind of dovetails that or supports that. The other thing, I think we have to be really careful when we change wording like distinguish between healthy and unhealthy relationships because you're changing the continuity of the document. It's been referred to as that in other places, I think. I'm not sure, I mean, I can't remember, but we discussed this quite a bit in standards, and it got voted down in standards for various reasons.
Okay. Board Member Scott Hansen.
Just also to go over kind of the discussion and thought process we went through. On Standard 1, MEH 1, I understand it may be leading with the negative, but bullying is a big topic of conversation, and that is something that
Board Member
teachers-
Hanson, we're talking about the.
Excuse me?
I'm trying, on the amendment to the amendment, which was,
Oh.
the only change would be the standard 4.HF.4.
Apologize, I'll save my
Where it
comments.
took the friendships to relationships. So we got an amendment. Sorry to interrupt you. Board Member Belknap.
Sorry, I just put a mint in my mouth and it's ginormous.
Sounds really good.
Okay, a couple of things. One, on number 1, the standard right before that talks about kindness. It's not up here, but the
Hey, let
one
me dive
right-
into something real fast. We're talking about a proposed amendment on standard, which.
Well, aren't we talking about all of this
No, we're
whole
not. We're
set?
talking about an amendment which stated, let me state the amendment here, is to change under standard 4.HF.4 to read. List characteristics found in relationships that have a positive or negative outcome and how to strengthen relationships. That's the proposed change. It's only in standard 4.HF.4, so that's.
Okay, I'm going to speak to that.
Okay, if you can.
Okay, I actually can. Jenny mentioned that they had discussed this in committee, but what did they discuss? When she said we need to be careful about what we're changing, I don't really know what she meant by what she had changed or discussed.
Chair Gravitt, did you, or?
And help me out, committee, if you can remember, and also, Jody, if you can jump in. I think the terminology healthy and unhealthy relationships is the consistent terms used throughout the document. I would be hesitant to suddenly start using different terminology. That's really confusing to teachers. Consistency is really, really important. So well, that's why we want to keep it as distinguish between healthy and unhealthy relationships.
That's why we changed it back to. That's why changing it back to relationship.
Right, but I would say the succinctness, the parsimony, there's a word for you. No, parsimony means succinctness. Have some parsimony. It's just cleaner, it's short. I just think we wanted to keep the standards really consistent and succinct.
Okay, the proposed amendment to the amendment that's on the table, we're going to vote on this after I restate it, is to change under standard, on item 10, to change the part that says standard F.HF4, which is listed in there, to take the words friendships and replace with relationships. So it will read as list characteristics found in relationships that have a positive or negative outcome and how to strengthen relationships. That's what we're voting on. Did I get it wrong?
I thought it was healthy relationships in the first part. Changed.
No,
Oh,
she.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Just watching out.
Hey, thank you. You gotta keep an eye on me, Board Member Bolter. I can slip stuff in really easy or omit. So that's what we're voting on. Again, the word friendship's coming out and being replaced with relationships. We're gonna vote. All in favor. This is an amendment to the amendment only. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Will the ayes raise your hand? Be recognized. Board Member Davis, Cannon, Hanson, Newell, Belknap, Board Member Lisa Cummins, Board Member Bolter, Board Member Earl. Are you in on that? Yeah. Vice Chair Brittany Cummins. Anyone on the phone?
Yes, I'm an aye.
That's Linda?
Ellie says aye.
Okay. So the motion for the amendment to the amendment passes. So we're back to 10, item 10, which has been amended, which is back on the table. Is there any discussion to amendment number 10 as amended? Okay, we have staff. You want to weigh in?
I just want to point out one thing. Standard 1 HF3, which is directly above Standard 1 MEH1, reads, demonstrate how to express gratitude, treat others with kindness, and respect differences. So if this motion passes, you will have two standards, the other, asking about to teach kindness. So if you eliminated the bully standard, you have kindness and kindness. I just wanted, that's what was discussed in committee of the reason why they voted to keep it how it was drafted, was because there was kindness in there. That's all I wanted to remind.
Thank you. Board Member Scott Hansen.
And I wanted to point out the same thing Jody just looked at, and also say that there is an active anti-bullying effort. We use that word, and kids need to be able to define as part of separate programs what bullying is and what bullying isn't, so they're not reporting things that aren't bullying as bullying. And so this wording was very important, and that was discussed in committee. And we led off with bullying because that was the focus of this standard, and then contrasted it with kindness. And there also is kindness included, as was said in the one before. Also, as we're speaking now about the whole amendment, Standard 4.MEH2, I believe that courage and grit and resilience are the strategies, or part of the strategies that we're talking about as far as managing inappropriate or harmful comments and behaviors from others. And I wouldn't want to limit the teachers to just courage and grit and resilience, because other studies will come up, other things may be important for them to teach as well, and I want to give them that latitude to do that. With Standard 6, SAP 1, negative peer pressure was what we were concerned about with this one, and how to resist that. And that may be focusing on the positive is resisting that negative peer pressure. So that was the focus we wanted. Thank you.
Okay. I'm not seeing any other comments or questions, so.
Okay, so can we divide those out? I'm making a motion to divide one from the other three. Although I think wherever we focus our dialogue is where we will turn the minds of children if we choose to focus. Okay, I'm making a motion to divide those.
First of all, let's make a motion to divide, and you said how, so it'd be.
Thanks, Lorraine.
You're dividing the Standard 1 dot MEHA
Standard 1 MEH1
1 from the others. Is that what I heard you?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, this is a motion to divide. And we're dividing the first standard from the rest, Standard 1-MEH1 from the others. We're going to vote. Any discussion to the motion to divide? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Well, the ayes, raise your hand and be recognized to divide. Board Member Cindy Davis, Board Member Belknap, Board Member Cummins, Lisa Cummins, Board Member Bolter, Board Member Earl. This is to divide. Who on the line?
Lisa.
Okay, that's Lisa, that's 6. Okay, the motion to divide did not pass. We're back to.
Okay, can I speak then, and we can?
Okay, we're back to speaking on 10 as amended.
I just think where we focus our attention and our efforts is where kids go. And if we have 2 with kindness, I'm not sure that's going to be a disadvantage in first grade if there's a little bit of overlap there.
Okay.
Versus spending our time focusing on bullying. I just think that's children go where we help lead them. And so I just encourage us to go in a positive direction.
Okay. Board Member Bolter.
I also just wanted to echo that I like that we're talking more on kindness. And so the fact that it's in the standard before, that just shows to the students how much we uphold being kind. And wherever we focus our attention, that's where the attitude typically goes. The more we talk about bullying, the more of an increase there typically is on bullying. But if we talk about and highlight kindness and being nice to others, and then compare those actions to bullying, that's a different way. Now we're upholding this higher standard of being kind, and then how it looks like to bullying. So that's why I'm going to vote for this.
Okay. I'm not seeing any other discussion from board members, and so the motion before the board is the proposed amended motion number 10 as written and amended. So I think we can vote on it. I don't think anyone's got any question what that content is, so let's vote on it. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Will the ayes raise their hand so I can count them? Board member
Ellis.
Board member Davis, board member Lisa Cummins, board member Michelle Bolter.
Is this on the whole motion?
Amendment number 10.
Amendment.
This isn't the amendment?
10, with the amendments.
It's the amendment number 10,
So this is on that as amended.
as amended.
Yes.
Can we take the vote again? I don't think-
Okay, the motion that we're all voting on is the proposed amendment number 10 as amended. We've got one amendment to this proposed amendment that has passed. Okay, let me make it, do you want me to read it?
No.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I'm trying to be really clear. So we're going to vote on this again. It's the proposed amendment, item number 10, as amended, once. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Okay, the ayes will be recognized. Will you raise your hand? Board member Cindy Davis, board member Bolter, board member Lisa Cummins, board member Bolter, board member Earl, board member Belknap. Did I? Okay, who on the phone?
I'm an aye, sorry, Ellis.
Ellis? Okay. Doesn't pass. Yeah. Okay. That proposed amendment does not pass. So we're
Okay.
moving to 11.
11, I'd like to make the amendment to add emphasizing the value of face-to-face relationships on standard H2, SDP 3, and standard H2, HD 8.
Okay. We have a proposed amendment, item number 7. Is there a second?
It's 11.
Oh, excuse me, 11. Did I grab the wrong? Oh, yeah, you're right. 11. Sorry. Flip the page back.
Are you second?
Losing my mind. Do we have a second? Second. Do you want to speak to the?
Yeah, just real quick, I just think that this is such a key point with our kids, that we're talking about electronics, we're talking about devices, and that we emphasize that there's value in face-to-face and not, and to, anyways, I just think that's important when you're talking about technology and electronic equipment.
Okay, we have a motion, second, discussion, or any clarifying questions to the motion? Seeing none? Are you guys? Is this the first time? Okay, I'll give you a minute.
It needs a comma. It says here.
Okay, the motion is proposing the proposed amendment, item number 11, as written. Any discussion to the motion? Board Member Lear.
I don't disagree with the concept, but I don't think it's in the right place. This is about practice responsible online communication, and pick your cliche, the ship has sailed, the horses out of the barn. This is already about technology and appropriate use, not that this is not an appropriate discussion at some point, but not in this standard.
Okay. Board Member Cindy Davis?
I kind of think it does go in this standard because they have to know when to look up. I mean, they don't, nobody looks up anymore. I mean, I don't know. There are times when you should just put it down and look up and interact with people.
Any other questions or comments? Board Member Scott Hansen?
Question on standard H2 HD8, is that a revision to E and not D? Just want to make sure.
I'll have to look. I'm
as we
not
vote.
sure.
I believe it's E that we're looking at, just if you could clarify.
Just a minute. And that may be the case.
Okay, we have a yes.
It is E.
Okay. Any other questions or Board Member Scott Hansen?
We could just ask staff to comment on this, please. This is one that we didn't consider during the committee, and I'm not sure
Yeah.
the implications all the way through. So if we could ask for staff to buy in, would that be okay, Chair?
Okay, staff, do you want to respond?
To clarify, you're asking me to weigh in on these amendments, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that when a teacher reads this, I feel like it's kind of ingrained into that standard because it's talking about, well, so the first part is inappropriate contact, and that one's all about the responsible ways to communicate. But the second one is impacts of technology, and I feel like that face-to-face communication is kind of ingrained into it. I don't think that it takes away from the standards, with the little bit of worry that on H2 SDP3, because that is the safe ways of communication, I would think that you would, I don't know, emphasizing value of maybe add in that safety again, I'm not sure how that fits.
Okay. Chair Earl? Chair, sorry.
I respond to anything. You can just call me Jenny. And Jody, this kind of brings up to me where it's about safety. To me, I kind of could interpret that as the value of doing something maybe a little bit dangerous face-to-face instead of online. That's how it struck me. And I know that's not the intent, but that would be my worry with having that in SDP 3. Since the whole intent is safety, and face-to-face is probably not the safest form.
Board Member Cindy Davis?
I'd like to divide the question. And I move to not put it in SDP .3, and I move to include the words emphasizing the value of face-to-face communication in HD .8.
You're going to
It's actually just amendment.
Yeah. You want to divide it?
I'd like to divide the question, and then I'd like people to remember what I just said after that when it's
Before you
time to
forget.
speak.
So there's only two parts. There's standard. So we have a motion to divide, and that's, and it's to divide standard.
I could just amend it. Would that be easier?
Oh, it's easier to divide it.
Oh, it's easier to
So we can divide. That's.
Okay.
So do we have a second to divide? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Well, the ayes, this is to divide. Raise your hand and be recognized.
I guess I do like it.
Yeah, I think you've made the motion. Yeah, this is to divide. Board Member Davis, Gravett, Lear, Hanson, Newell. Anyone on, okay, Vice Chair Brittany Cummins. Anyone on the, here we are. I'm still looking around here. Bolter, Earl, Lisa Cummins. Anyone online? This is to divide. We've
Yes,
got,
Hanson.
okay, Hanson. Okay, we have, the motion passes, we have plenty, so, to divide. Okay, now it's divided, so,
Now we have to do it again.
Board Member Davis, did you want to speak to one particular?
Let's add to.
Okay, I'm turning it back on.
I'll just add to what I said. In the second one, if you're looking at potentially positive and negative impacts of technology in relationships, I think that is an appropriate place to put the value of face-to-face communication.
Anyone else want to speak?
So do you want to speak to
To the, okay, we'll speak
Chair,
to, yeah, she started on the second one, which is the HD8. So does somebody want to speak to that one?
Oh, I was going to call the question on the first one and try to get that out of the way.
Okay, we have, well, it's divided, so we can go to Amendment 11, the proposed item 11, standard H, is that an H2?
So I'd propose, I'd call the question on H2 SDP3.
H2. So you're calling the question H2 SDP3?
Yes.
Okay. Give me a second.
Yeah.
Second? Second. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Are we calling?
Those opposed?
Is this for a call to question?
Call the question.
Aye. Aye.
I'm not hearing any opposed, so it passes unanimously. Okay, we're going to vote on the proposed amendment, item number 11, standard H2 SDB3. Did I read that right? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Those opposed?
No.
Okay,
No.
okay. Motion fails. Okay, now what's on the table is under 11, standard H2 HD8. Anyone want to speak to that, to the proposed amendment?
Let's just vote.
Board Member Scott Hanson?
I'll speak in favor of the amendment as amended to, so this is E under H2 HD8. I think this is an appropriate place to emphasize that face-to-face communication is a positive impact or a positive way to communicate and eliminate some of the negative impacts of technology.
Okay. Anyone else speaking to the proposed amendment 11, the standard H2 HD8? Board Member Lisa Cummins?
I'm speaking to the motion. Employers would really appreciate this, I know. You know, whether it be soft skills or professional skills or whatever you want to entitle it, face-to-face communication, body posture, eye-to-eye communication, enunciation, all of that is very important. So, yes.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other discussion to the motion, so the proposed motion is the amendment 11, standard H2 HD8 as written. I'm going to call this to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, I would like to move or make an amendment at number 12, and this is describing, I understand it has characteristics of a good friend, but specifically including what those characteristics might look like. And then as far as good friendships, explaining to kids that healthy relationships are best foundations for romantic relationships. Oh, do I need a second before no.
Okay, we have a motion as proposed in item 12, addendum, or amendment, sorry, amendment item 12. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, you spoke to the motion. Do you want to add any more?
No, just that I think it's
Okay.
important to outline what we want that to look like, so. And then just, yeah, talking about personal boundaries.
Okay, we have a
dating,
motion and a
yep.
second. Discussion to the motion. Board members.
And high school one.
Seventh, eighth graders.
That's what we said, is leave it to the curriculum.
Okay, I'm not seeing any,
Nope.
not seeing any discussion to the proposed amendment number 12 as written. So calling that to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Will the ayes
Nay.
raise your hand and be recognized? Okay, we have Board Member Lisa Cummins, Board Member Bolter, Board Member Earl. Who on the phone?
Ellis.
Board Member Ellis, okay. Motion does not pass.
Okay, I'd like to make, I'm skipping 13. I'm just hoping that when we talk demonstrate, I've been reassured that demonstrate is not acting out. Okay, I'm just taking your word for it because, okay.
Okay, we're not, oh,
Okay, so we're just skipping 13. 14, I'd like to make an amendment for clearer wording on H1, HD9. To remove alcohol and other substances, comma, friends, et cetera, to move, when I first, okay, that's what I'm going to make my motion. And then
Okay.
just switching it to the end.
okay, we're doing okay. You're making a,
Oh, and then, I'm sorry, I do have it. And then standard H2, I just have it reworded. HF.2, list in place of demonstrate effective ways to communicate personal boundaries and show respect for the boundaries of others. I'd like it to read, list specific personal standards for physical contact and strategies for communicating them early in dating relationships so personal boundaries of others and yourself are understood and respected.
okay, we have a motion to put on the table item number 14. Amendment item number 14. Do we have a second?
Second.
Did you want to speak any more to your motion?
Yes, just the alcohol and substance, and then it goes on, and then I just think it wording it a little differently, putting that at the end or somewhere else, it just seemed a little more concise to me. And then the other one is, we're talking about high school 2, which is their, I don't know what grade specifically, I'm sure it's 10th, 11th, 12th, whenever they take that health in high school. This is listing their personal goals. This isn't someone imposing something on someone else. This is them, and then being able to communicate those boundaries. So I think those are important. Just a better, clearer definitions of communication.
Okay. Chair Gravitt.
Just a clarification question.
But I got to have you turn that back on. There you go.
Okay, question, I'm
Yeah.
looking on your amendment, and it says it's standard HIHD9, but that doesn't match. I'm just wondering if you could direct us to the right place.
Sorry, let me look then.
Is it, it's C instead of A?
Yeah.
So,
What is it?
Oh, sorry. when
okay, C, I find it
moved
now,
them
I found
over,
it now.
automatically does the A. Yeah, right.
Okay, sorry, thank you for that.
Okay.
No, it's the one.
And this is still correct on HD9? Okay. Any other discussion to the proposed amendment?
Still reading, Chair. Give us a second.
Sorry, now I want to remember why.
Chair Gravitt?
So I'm remembering why we didn't include, we talked about this in committee, for example, about religious beliefs. And I think, is it Rhett Larson talked about this, and specifically he said, this is to deal with things that are, could be negative. And if you put religious beliefs in there, the connotation is like this is something that is going to hurt you. I feel like that was the discussion. Like we were trying to focus on things that could be harmful. So I think we were hesitant to put other things in that maybe would not be harmful. I think that was the discussion. That helps.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Cindy Davis?
I do like the part where it talks about communicating your personal boundaries early in dating relationships. I think that we get into a lot of like date rape types of things later on, and I'm not saying that's the fault of a person who doesn't communicate, but could help maybe.
Can I amend to remove religious beliefs then?
Okay, hang on once.
Okay.
Hey, hang. Oh, okay. So you wanted to what?
Remove religious beliefs from the amendment. Do I need to make an amendment to the amendment for that? Where it was my motion?
I don't think anybody is of objection. I'm not seeing that right now. So, any other discussion? Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to restate the proposed amendment number 14. And the motion before it is to it's how written, with the exception of the A is a C. This is okay. Let me go to standard H1 HD9. That the A is actually a C, and religious beliefs is taken out. That is what I understand your motion.
That's
is.
correct.
Are we ready to vote on it? I'm not seeing any discussion from board members or any lights on. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No. Will the ayes, raise your hand, be recognized? Board Member Davis, Board Member Belknap, Board Member Ellis, Board Member Lisa Cummins, Board Member Volter, Board Member Earl.
I'm Mark.
Okay, Scott, you're 7. You're the 7th on this, but anyone else online's an aye besides Scott? And Elisa?
He counted for.
Okay. Didn't pass. Okay. The proposed amendment didn't pass.
Okay. I would like to make an amendment to standard H2 HF4, develop resiliency skills. And underneath there, I'd like to add list benefits of practicing self-control, such as delaying immediate gratification, resisting negative peer pressure, and avoiding risks of impulsive behavior.
Okay, your motion is to add to standard H2 HF4, develop resiliency skills, to have a D, list benefits of practicing self-control, such as delaying immediate gratification, resisting negative peer pressure, and avoid risk of impulsive behavior. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Board Member Cindy Davis.
I think that list is a good list, but I'm wondering if the Standards Committee might know of a place that it could fit. I'm not sure that under develop resiliency skills, those fit there.
Jody.
Can I have a minute?
Yes, Jody. Hold it. I think push your button one more time. Something. Did you want to comment? Oh, what's that? Oh, I thought you was wanting to comment, so, okay. Okay. Board Member Lear.
Maybe while she's looking, or I wondered, and maybe I'm asking the same people another question, though. I wonder why you kept that short, what your thinking was in keeping it short rather than a laundry list. Do you have any recollection of that discussion or thinking?
Okay, so we're talking about H2, HF4, develop
Right.
resiliency skills. We have 3 items under it right now.
She just was taking out, oh.
And she was,
Oh.
this amendment adds a D. There's
I
already an A, B, C. This would add a
Thank you.
D.
I was just working from here, thinking it was just developed. I
Laundry
appreciate that, withdrawn, thank you. I like that.
Okay, any other questions? People are still studying and reading,
I like that a lot.
looks like.
I think it goes under that's coping skills.
Can I argue that it goes under there?
Try. You'll get 6 votes.
Can I
So while
speak to my
while she's
motion?
looking that up, is there anything outside of
Can
that
I-
question?
Can I speak to my motion? I just think when you're talking develop resiliency skills, self-control is one of those, that delayed gratification. You're talking about coping skills, you're talking about individual mindset, healthy response to failure, you're talking about resiliency by connecting to others, self and family. And I think that self-control, that avoiding risk of impulsing behavior falls under that category. So. Should we postpone, move to the other 2, and then come back? Is that?
Well, that's something we can do, and I'm going to see if they're really close.
Should I post?
You
I
can.
move
Go
that we
ahead.
postpone
Okay.
this until we finish the other 2, and then that gives time for
You have a-
review.
You have a motion to postpone this to come back when?
As soon as we address the other 2 amendments.
All
Real
right.
quick.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We're going to vote on the, we got,
Okay. I withdraw.
without objection, we won't make that motion to postpone. Okay. Jordan, did you want to handle that, or?
I should have been.
Oh, sorry.
So 2 things that we're quickly trying to find. In Health 1, so I've heard some, so can I just clarify one thing of when Health 1 is and when Health 2 is? Is that appropriate? Just because I've
Okay.
heard mixed things. Health 1 is 7th or 8th grade in code and rule, actually both. And then Health 2 is in 9th or 10th grade, if that helps you with the ages of students. Okay. In Health 1, same standard, so it's HI, HF3, letter B. There is a scaffold here. So explain the importance of taking responsibility for one's actions, behaviors, and discuss locus of control, which is defined in the health terms and resources already. That is defined already. So that one would scaffold. But then in mental health, so high school, sorry, Darren, which one was that? Oh, okay, so still protective factor, sorry. The one directly above H2, HF3. Apply decision-making strategies to a health-related.
We might need someone on the phone to hit mute if they haven't.
Apply decision-making strategies to a health-related choice and defend the decision. So these could be part of, because self-control, delaying immediate gratification, negative peer pressure, avoiding risk, and impulsive behavior are all decision-making skills. So it could be part of that. It's the standard the right before. So this is H2, HF4, and this would fit better, in my opinion,
Practice resilience.
for HF3. under decision-making.
All right. Board Member Cindy Davis?
I like that because these skills seem proactive in this list, and developing resiliency sometimes can be reactive to other things happening. So I move that we move this list to H2HF4.
I think it was H1.
Did I say it wrong? Did I write it wrong?
I think
H3.
H2HF3 is what was.
H2HF3.
So that's the amendment to the amendment. Do we have a second?
Schooling.
Would it be listed as a D in
That's
this
the problem
housekeeping?
with it. There's,
It would be an A?
yeah, but you just cannot
Okay.
have an A.
Okay, we had a second? Did we get that? Okay, discussion to the amendment. To the amendment to the amendment. Okay. Not seeing any, let's vote on the amendment to the amendment, and that's the amendment would read,
Yeah, and they're moving it, they're talking about.
you're gonna delete, or you're gonna move the HV4 to HV3, and then change the A to a D. Or no, a D to an A.
But then there'd only be an A.
Just have an A.
No, we're just gonna have the second sentence, right?
No?
Just- I think they're gonna have to reword it. Just reword that. Jody has some possible.
Okay, thank you.
I would suggest that you keep H2HF3 as it's in draft, apply decision-making strategies to a health-related choice and defend the decision. Same standard, new sentence, the amended motion, that is, list the benefits of practicing. So 2 sentences in the one standard, which we have throughout the document.
So you're adding an additional sentence.
Sentence to the existing standard. So
To
if,
the-
yes, if the board votes on this, it would be a second sentence on the same standard.
Well, then ask her.
Okay, I
So
think
you'd
I've got
add
that.
it at the end.
Okay, so the amendment to the motion is to move,
List
um,
benefits.
where it says, list benefits of practicing self-control such as delaying immediate gratification, resisting negative peer pressure, and avoiding skills of impulsive behavior, to be the second sentence in standard H2HF3. Is that what you said? Did I screw that up?
I think so too.
Okay, so I've got a thumbs up. I think that's what was being proposed.
I didn't mean to be.
Okay, Board Member Scott Hansen.
Oh, I thought Carol was ahead of me. I would propose an amendment to this. I am having trouble with benefits of practicing self-control.
We already have one amendment to the amendment.
Okay, maybe I can just comment first and then
Yeah.
see, okay. I'm having problems with the wording of benefits of practicing self-control, those benefits being delaying immediate gratification, resisting negative peer pressure, and avoiding risks of impulsive behavior. I think those are some examples of self-control. I don't know that those are benefits of self-control, so I don't, the benefits of self-control, those are ways that we demonstrate self-control, and the benefits would be increased health and emotional, physical health. So maybe an English teacher could help us with how to word that.
So what you're talking about is, your issue is everything past self-control.
Yes, I don't believe that those are the benefits of practicing self-control.
Yeah.
Okay, so we haven't,
So I'm not sure how to attack that.
so who made the original? Okay, will you, this is your amendment to the amendment, so let's restate it. Thank you.
Scott, tell me if this works. I move that we add to H2HF3. List benefits of practicing self-control, delaying immediate gratification, resisting negative peer pressure, and avoiding risks of impulsive behavior.
I had just written down.
Can we get it
competing?
typed up?
It just took out such as.
How about discuss the practice of self-control such as delaying?
Is that not the hierarchy of?
Okay.
No, that's what. Yeah,
Chair Gravitt.
Well, how do I say this? I teach in a junior high school, and I think we need another word besides delaying gratification. It's a problem. So I'm so I don't know how else to say it, but I think it's not what maybe some of you are thinking of. So I'm sure it was about buying shoes. Carol thought it was about buying shoes, but I'm sorry. I just think it's a problem. I have a junior high mind. I'm sorry.
Then you better make an amendment.
I don't want to.
Okay, so this thing is spun away from the original on this, and so if I was to go backwards on here, Board Member Davis, you have a proposed amendment that went out, and it was about putting all of this in H2HF3, and then if that passed or failed, that would affect your original amendment, which was all about 15. So without objection, can I get away with this? Mm-hmm. Is it okay if we take your amendment off? We're going back to and taking 15 off and then starting this discussion over? Or is that doable? Or do you have a better solution?
Just that part.
Because it just unwinded it.
So basically, her amendment was to change we could do that.
3 without a D. Okay. Well, maybe we can just stay to
Okay,
that.
so-
Maybe we can just stay into that and see if it passes or fails, so we can keep yours on the table. This is,
Okay.
okay, so I'm not going here. Okay, so Board Member Davis, your original,
Remove the such as delaying.
Okay.
yeah.
I'm gonna.
Yeah, your original was to replace,
I'm gonna use.
to
Scott's
hers was
language.
replace the 4 with a 3 on the standard H2HF3.
Yes.
Take the D away, and it would just be an extra, an additional sentence, and take out such
Yeah,
as.
I'm gonna use his language. It's gonna say, discuss benefits of practicing self-control, such as delaying immediate gratification, resisting negative peer pressure, and avoiding risks of impulsive behavior.
Okay, we're good.
It's just discussed rather than list.
Mark, can I make a comment?
Yeah.
This is Linda. I just don't know what the benefits of making a list of those things are. What are we hoping to accomplish? Instant gratification is something that we start teaching toddlers to delay, toddlers and grade school kids. And when you get to high school, I just don't see the benefit of just having them create a list. That's my concern with this. Just so you know.
Took out
Okay.
list. He wants to leave that in. So it's just
Okay, so
changing
let me
list to
just,
discuss.
thank you. Well, before I restate what Board Member Davis said. Okay, I'll restate it then. So tell me if this is what your proposed amendment is, if this is correctly, to replace the 4, standard H1LHF4, the 4 in that with 3, take off the A, or no, sorry, that was
D.
one other thing. Take the D off, and then the first part of the sentence where it says last, that would be replaced with discuss. And so it would read like this: discuss benefits of practicing self-control, such as delaying immediate gratification, resisting negative peer pressure, and avoiding risk of impulsive behavior. Is that what you're?
Yes, and that would be a sentence added to H2, HF3.
Yeah, the sentence added to HB3, so.
We have to get rid of
Okay.
benefits of.
All right.
Benefits of was to be
Oh,
stricken.
and get rid of benefits of. It's just
just be
discuss
Oh, it says it
right there,
practicing
discuss the practice.
self-control.
Right, second one.
Just discuss practicing
Okay, that's even,
self-control.
wow. Okay, so it would read, discuss practicing self-control, such as delaying immediate gratification, resisting negative peer pressure, and avoiding risk of impulsive behavior. Okay,
Blushing already.
so that's where we're at now. Board Member Lisa Cummins.
The benefits, if I may respond to Board Member Hansen's comment, is that we're not raising a generation of students that are instant gratification. What's that girl with the golden egg and chocolate factory? I want it now, you know. And I think we should also add the benefits of failing and learning from failing. You know, that it's okay to fail and learn
It's
from.
already in there.
It's already in there? Okay, then I will withdraw that. But I think the more we instill in patience and perseverance and resiliency, the better and more stable adults they will become.
Be careful through examples. Why are we not careful?
Okay, well, so we have the proposed amendment to the amendment. We're going to vote on it, and it is to change the standard H1 LHF3 to add this last sentence. Am I getting it? Oh, we still have more. Okay, here we go. I didn't see them before. I didn't see them. They weren't there. All right. Board Member Lear.
I changed my mind. Thank you.
Board Member Earl.
There seems to be some concern over delaying immediate gratification. I wonder if in place of that, it would put impatience or something along that lines. So such as, or do you like the delaying?
Sure, I guess you want to get some self-control.
Well, there's other things.
Okay, you're proposing an.
It represents a variety.
Oh, wait, no, this is.
Hold
our
on.
amendment.
And I do think it's an important concept.
We can't make other amendments to it.
Oh, it's an amendment to the amendment.
It is an amendment,
for
so.
it. Let's vote.
So we're out of rolling up our sleeves work, and we're trying to follow these rules.
Yeah.
So it's an amendment. Yeah, so we're speaking to the amendment that Board Member Davis is making to the amendment. So I'm going to restate it. Will you let me know and stop me if somebody wants to talk again, and I won't read it all. Okay. Standard, to change standard H1 LHF3 to read as the last sentence, discuss practicing self-control. Three, not four. Hold on, okay. Are we? It's H1. What is it?
H2.
Oh, thank you. H2, 3?
HF3.
HF3. Okay. Thank you. Here we go again. The proposed amendment is to change the standard H2, HF3 to include this last sentence. Discuss practicing self-control, such as delaying immediate gratification, resisting negative peer pressure, and avoiding risk of impulsive behavior. All those in favor to this proposed amendment to the amendment, say aye. Those opposed? Will the ayes raise your hand and be recognized? Board Member Cindy Davis, Board Member Cannon, Board Member Hanson, Board Member Lisa Cummins, Board Member Bolter, Board Member Earl. Anyone?
I'm an aye, Mark.
Oh, Belknap,
So am I.
Elisa, Scott, and Vice Chair is an aye, and Vice Chair Brittany Cummins and Mark Huntsman. Motion, that amendment to the motion passes. Now we're back to the original motion, which is basically the same thing.
I withdraw.
Well, no, well, okay, so we're voting on the exact same thing because we've just finished the amendment, and we have to do it to follow the rule. So the amendment is just what we voted on, so I'll save the time and not read it. All in favor say aye. Hold on, wait.
I'm wrong.
Oh.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, I'm trying to stay right. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, will the ayes be recognized? Board Member Davis, Board Member Cannon, Board Member Belknap, Board Member Lisa Cummins, Board Member Bolter, Board Member Jenny Earl, Vice Chair Brittany Cummins. How about
I'm an aye as well.
aye on Scott Nelson?
Correct.
Elisa?
An aye?
Yes.
Hanson?
No.
And
That's 9.
what's that?
That's 9.
Okay, motion passes. Okay,
Okay, I'd like to make a motion.
hang on.
Amend, and on 16, just moving it from standard H2 HD 8D to down to H2 HD 9F, where it falls in, okay.
Okay.
That's my motion.
We have a proposed
Just to move.
So you're just moving.
amendment, number 6, item 16. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, discussion to the proposed.
This just falls under dating violence, and so I just felt like it fit more appropriately down under here, under this particular area, so.
Discussion to the motion.
It's just going down from 8 to 9 for those looking. HD 8 to HD 9.
Yeah.
There, I'm
Board
not
members.
adding this, as I'm moving it, so.
Okay. Board Member Cindy Davis?
Just, can we get committee input on that? Is there any specific reason why that would be problematic? Or would that be fine?
Jody.
Jody?
Jody.
Yeah, I'm
It would be,
getting
the move would be, it's still there, it's fine.
It's what?
The moving it from 8 to 9, the standard is still in there, so it's fine.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, the Board Member Lear?
So you don't think there's a problem with teachers not being able to teach it earlier? Could they teach it earlier as well, or do they have to? I mean, that means that it could be 9th or 10th grade before they're talking about this. Is that right, or am I misunderstanding?
They're both 9th and 10th.
Yeah, they're both 9th and 10th?
Yeah.
It's just
Oh,
moving under
okay.
the correct.
Right, all it's new is moving it from H2, so Health 2. Standard 8 to Standard 9 in the
Oh,
same grade.
No problem.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just trying to figure out if it was moving it later in grades, and I didn't want it to.
Okay,
No,
the
and teachers
amended-
don't teach in order of the standards either. I mean, yeah. So a teacher could teach they could do nutrition first, or they could do it last. This isn't a to-do list. Yeah.
I was just looking at.
Okay, The amendment is amendment number 16. There's any changes or anything as listed here? Any other questions or comments from board members? Seeing none, you guys ready to vote on it, I presume, unless I interrupt. So the proposed amendment, item number 16, will be as proposed. I want to read it all. I think everyone knows. This, there's not an amendment or anything. So we're going to vote on it. All in favor say aye. Those opposed?
No.
Will the ayes raise your hand we're saying this is approving 16.
Okay.
Item 16. So all those that approve of this, will you raise your hand? Will be recognized. Board Member Cindy Davis, Board Member Scott Hansen, Board Member Newell, Board Member Belknap, Board Member Lisa Cummins, Board Member Bolter.
Oh, sorry.
Well, it was partially up, and I didn't. Maybe as you're
called my
keeping
name.
it up all the. Oh, okay. Board Member Jenny Earl.
So we're good in that then? Yeah.
I'm an aye, Mark.
Vice Chair Brittany Cummins, Scott Nielsen, Elisa.
Yes.
Okay. Linda.
Yes.
Okay. Motion passes. Okay.
Okay, and last motion for me. I'd like to make an amendment, number 17, on health standard H1, HD6, compare and contrast the effectiveness of various risk-reducing behaviors, including condoms as a method of I want to change it from preventing to reducing, and then the same on health standard H2, HD4, evaluate the effectiveness of risk-reducing behaviors, including condoms as a method of reducing, and cancel out preventing.
Okay, do we have a second?
Do you have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, just specifically with condom usage, both with the FDA website and the CDC website, the first thing they say is it's important to use, it just refers to it, it's important to use condoms to help reduce spread STIs. And then the same with the FDA, and consistent and correct use of male latex condom reduces the risk of sexually transmitted disease. If some it does almost a prevention, but there's a number of infections and disease that it does more of a reducing, just depending on what type it is. So just want that to be accurate information on there for youth. So
Any discussion?
So it follows FDA and CDC.
Any further discussion to the board member Janet Cannon?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but as I read the standard, it already previously says that what we're doing, we're talking about the effectiveness of risk-reducing behaviors. So I think we've already talked about reducing the risk. So we're trying to reduce and prevent the STDIs.
So unless I'm not understanding the standard, I think it's referring to condom usage is what the risk prevention and reducing is in that. Is that what it's referring to? Directing back to that or not?
Okay. Chair, you were part of that conversation, so.
So the way I understand it, it just says including condoms, so it's not like restricting.
As a
restrictive.
method, is the method referring to method of preventing? Is that referring to condoms or something else?
I think it's referring, and Jody, step in if you will. I think it's referring to all risk-reducing behaviors, if I'm looking at it from an English teacher point of view.
Jody, do you want to comment?
So the standard is to compare and contrast effectiveness of various risk-reducing behaviors as a method of preventing STD and STIs.
Positive.
Yes. So risk-reducing behaviors, there's a list of them. And Elizabeth Gerke with the Department of Health would be much better at explaining the risk-reducing behaviors than I am. That's her whole job is this. And the goal is to prevent the STD and STI. So the word preventing was there on purpose because that's the goal of a risk-reducing behavior is to prevent STDs and STIs.
Okay.
So you're saying it's not in relationship to condoms?
So condoms is in parentheses on purpose because it can be. So condoms is included as one risk-reducing behavior, but risk-reducing behaviors is a much bigger list of things.
And that's what the clarification was. I wanted to know
Yes.
if it related to.
Yes.
So.
And that's one method.
Okay, we'll just leave it standing, so if those that want to vote for it can, so reduce.
Okay, we have a few questions and comments here. Vice Chair Brittany Cummins.
I was just going to say, when we use use reducing in the sentence, it feels like a statistical change, whereas the standards is meant to be an individual decision in prevention, and so that's why I would not use the word reduce, because yes, we might reduce statistically the occurrence of, but if we're talking specifically to an individual, you are preventing your impact or your
okay.
Personal
connection.
one. Okay, Board Member Scott Hansen.
Just briefly, looking at the CDC website, the title of the page on STDs is, the title line, I guess, says how you can prevent sexually transmitted diseases, and then it goes down and lists condoms as one way, and talks about how they reduce.
Yeah, and that's why I was wondering the
So
relationship there.
I believe the way that we've written it here, we talked about prevention and then the reduction by these methods. So I think it's proper the way it's written.
I just like to withdraw my motion after the further clarification.
Without objection?
Okay.
Okay. It's withdrawn. Board Member Cindy Davis.
I found what I was looking for at the very beginning of this discussion. Can I move to a different topic?
Well.
Can I make it? I found the words that were in the original draft touched in a way that makes them feel uncomfortable. So I would like to amend standard 1.HD.4.
Standard 1.
Standard 1.HD.4, and all of those with this verbiage to read like this. Discuss how to clearly say no, leave a situation or interaction, and identify and talk with a trusted adult when feeling uncomfortable, unsafe, afraid, or touched in a way that makes them feel uncomfortable.
That's your,
And I'd like to speak to the motion.
okay, that's your motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Okay, do you want to speak to your motion?
Yes, this was added in at every grade level on previous drafts and then gone back, and then went back and taken out. I'd like to add it back in. What I'd really like it to say to these kids is that if someone is touching you in your most personal parts of your body, they're wrong. And if they ask you not to tell anyone, they're wrong. And if they're offering gifts or threatening to hurt your pets or someone you love, they're still wrong, and you still need to get help. And if someone has already done this to you, you're not a bad person. That's what I would love this to say. But this language, at least, touched in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable, at least that opens the door for the local LEA to develop what they feel is appropriate there, but at least it recognizes that that's happening to our kids, and we need to help them.
We have a motion and a second. Board Member Lear.
I'm fine with the concept, I just don't want the them in there. It should be a person or one or
Okay, so you want to, without objection, you want to change that to
something grammatically correct.
staff. Do you have a better word than?
I'll just, we can, I'm fine with it leaving.
That's uncomfortable.
Well, the previous draft was demonstrate how to clearly say no, how to leave an uncomfortable situation, how to identify and talk with a trusted adult if being touched in a way that makes one feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's fine.
That was the previous draft. And that was before, that was prior to public comment.
great. It's just
That was the draft prior to public comment. Yes,
concept
that's where
is
that came
great.
from.
I just wanted to not to have that
Okay.
universal pronoun in there.
Sorry, I need to find it again.
Board Member Cannon?
As I look at the amendment, I'm uncomfortable that we use uncomfortable so many times. Could we say, when feeling unsafe, afraid, or being touched in a way that makes one feel uncomfortable? And just delete that extra uncomfortable up there? So, when feeling unsafe, afraid, or being touched in a way that makes one feel uncomfortable.
We're getting right at, I think we're getting kind of at the end here, so this is your amendment. Is there
It's
a
fine
better?
if it's fine with the, you folks, standards committee folks.
Is there do you have a recommendation? We want to get this approved, or we want to get this motion out and get the standards approved. Do you have a recommendation on?
Maybe Ken, if it's
But while you're thinking of that, let me get some comments here. Board Member Jenny Earl.
Yeah, my comment is, I want kids to be safe. I wonder how much curriculum, does this start delving into curriculum elements versus, and I'm just asking the question, because communities will pick curriculums they use. Do you know of any that doesn't address that safety issue? I don't know. That's why I'm asking. Because we'd love it to say that whole long thing, right, for protection. That does that, though. Most curriculums probably.
The ones I'm familiar with do talk about touch, but local districts may use things that, or they don't even talk about touch, and they talk about just like your safe space zone, like your personal space. I am most familiar with a curriculum that talks about not allowing people to touch you if it makes you uncomfortable. They do it very, for a very young audience, very well. But
so why was
but districts and charters choose their own curriculum.
Right.
So I don't know how to answer
What
your
was
question
the
best.
public comment for change on that? Why was that?
It was removed because there was a lot of voice about the word touch.
Okay.
And the writing committee chose to take that out and use the same terms throughout, where public comment was very favorable to how some were worded. And so the writing committee used the favorable wording throughout.
So
and
it's
that's
the
why it was
touch
taken.
element.
That's why it was taken out, is there were comments of they really liked the way one was worded and not this one. And so the writing committee chose the one that's in draft 2.
Vice Chair Brittany Cummins.
I guess my question is does the motion really add to the meaning other than add the word touch? Because now it's still just relying on a child to feel uncomfortable with. And so I'm just wondering, is the motion getting, obviously it's not, because you already stated you'd like to go somewhere else, but I don't see that the motion or the amendment actually adds to, in a positive way, to what is already there, because it talks about situations and things. So I don't think it's a beneficial amendment.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Ms. Lorraine, are you ready to restate that exactly how she had that? Okay, we're going to get ready to vote on that. Oh, okay, yep, we are. Go ahead, Lorraine.
Okay, so this would be to amend 1.HD.4, and then was it also throughout the standards? Amend, discuss how to clearly say no, leave a situation or interaction, and identify and talk with a trusted adult when feeling unsafe, afraid, or being touched in a way that makes one feel uncomfortable, right? Is that correct?
Okay. All right, we're going to vote on it. All
Can
in,
I make a comment? Is it too late?
yeah, you can make a comment. Go ahead, we're good.
My comment is that we're narrowing this down to touch. They may feel uncomfortable about the way someone's speaking to them or something else, and we're narrowing it down to only touch. So that's my concern. Thanks.
Okay. All right, we're going to vote. I don't think we need to restate it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
No.
Okay, with the ayes, raise your hand, be recognized. Hang on the phone, I'll hit you last. Okay, Board Member Davis, Cannon, Belknap. Okay, now on the phone.
Yes, Scott is an aye.
Okay. Motion doesn't pass. Okay. I'm going to go back to, it feels like yesterday. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Did we have lunch? I'm trying to remember breakfast. Today's Thursday? Okay.
You do need a break.
Hey, I appreciate everyone's work on this, but I'm going to go back to, this is the motion that's before the board. And that is to approve the health education standards as amended. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Wait, do we get to discuss?
Wait. I state, what? Any more discussion to the motion?
Yes.
Okay,
So we're now voting on the overall amended version of the standard.
Yes.
yeah, we've been,
Okay.
the last half a day, it feels like, we've been going over the,
Well, I just,
okay. So let me just re-clarify it.
You're cruising.
Okay, what's that? You want to comment before we vote?
yes, I did.
Okay,
Yes.
please do.
I just wanted to thank everyone for all of their work on this. It's a long process, and I appreciate the time that you all spent today. And I just want to explain, I'm voting no for these, not because I don't appreciate all of the hard work, but in general, health education is a required course, and there are many standards that I feel go beyond the scope of the school's job. I know that many don't agree with me on that, but I do want to express appreciation for all the work, and that's all. But thank you for all your time today.
Okay. I see any, Board Member Bolter.
I too wanted to say thank you for all the hard work. You guys spent a lot of time, especially in standards and committee, and for indulging all these amendments. I too am going to ultimately vote no on the standards, mainly because there's a lot of mental health in here, and some discussions that I'm just wondering, because now we're going all the way down to third grade, will there be an opportunity for parents to opt their children out of certain discussions that, like sex ed, or anything like that? They'll be able to opt out of the sex ed, but nothing else. So, yeah. But I just wanted to explain that that's the only reason why I'm voting no, is that I feel like a lot of this it needs to remain in the home, and it's not the responsibility of the schools.
Vice Chair Brittany Cummins.
I just want to maybe clarify for the public's sake that there is no sex ed in third grade, that there is sex abuse prevention, which does require parental permission. And so just so the public knows that there is no sex ed in third grade.
Okay, did Board Member Scott Nielsen, did you have a comment? I thought I heard you.
No, great work. Overall, I think it's very good. There's obviously some things that I would change, but I will be voting for this. And just FYI, I drove from Salt Lake. I just pulled into St. George during this discussion, so well done.
Are you bragging or complaining? Because we're still here. And you're still on the phone. Okay, Board Member Lisa Cummins.
I just want to thank the writing committee for being patient with us and working with us, and Jody for, I'm sure, being patient equally as well, and going to all the meetings and things. So thank you for your work. I appreciate it.
Any other thank yous? I think we need to throw one out to the community and everyone else. Thank you for their participation and staff and educators and their patients and everything else. So thanks again. Okay, I'm going to put this motion out to vote on. And the motion is that the board approve the health education standards as amended. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No. Will the ayes be recognized by raising your hands? Board Member Cindy Davis, Board Member Cannon, Board Member Gravitt, got it? Board Member Lear, Board Member Hanson, Board Member Newell, Board Member Belknap, Board Member Jenny Earl, Board Member, or Vice Chair Brittany Cummins. About,
I'm an aye, Mark.
you're an aye. Okay, Scott Nielsen, any other ayes on the phone?
Linda Hansen is an aye.
Board Member Hanson, Board Member Huntsman. The motion passes. Thank you. Okay, board members, we still have quite an agenda, but I think we're due for a break. Try to make it about 10 minutes, but as soon as we get back in, and it looks like we've got a quorum, we're started. We still have some work to do. Thank you. Enjoy your break.